Hello, Internet, and welcome to Chapter Collective, page 5. My guest today is Anthony Carluccio. I met him through the other podcast that we do with the same one for Jeff Neighbors, page 2. We all are in on a podcast called Reroll Expectations, which is just a D&D content related campaign. Pretty much, we literally are just playing D&D. And so he's a cool dude. Lots of, pre-recording conversations, some like DMs on Discord. I think he's a really awesome dude. Really sharp and into some things that just, not everybody is. I think he's a really cool guy. We talk about like everything, and it could have been everything squared, but it got to the point where it was like rolling past 3 hours, and we both kind of like had to do our part. So, as far as things that get covered in this, man, we talk about, his experience touring with like some up and coming hardcore metal bands. Or, just that scene. I forget what genre it is, but he did it for several bands, 3 or 4. We talk about some alien stuff, because he's like, me and him are both like moderately into it. There's a lot of like, I actually don't want to discourage listening to this side of it for once, where politics kind of causes a lot of friction, but like we had like a really healthy politics conversation, and that's like way at the end though. So like if if you can't make it to the 3 hours, like by all means tap out. Like it's a long one, even digest it in bites if you have to. But we had like a really healthy like political conversation, because we would entertain ideas, and I would play devil's advocate and like say well this, or and then I'm just kind of finding the gray area between these two policies, or any of the policies in general. We talk about like unions and their impacts. He is also like a longtime straight edge, and just talking about like that decision, and like coming from like a particular situation and or like upbringing where you're technically around that stuff all the time, and then like not feeling the need to do it. And it's like interesting, and I like, me and him both kind of share that, like influence isn't necessarily correlated with exposure. So it I don't know, there's a lot of really intelligent conversations. I think he's a really bright dude, and I'm looking forward to having another conversation with him, and I hope you enjoy it. All right, well, welcome Anthony to Chapter Collective, page 5. We'll do the shameless plug first, because Jeff did it. So Anthony is somebody that I participate with on the other podcast, Reroll Expectations. And so that is how I'm acquainted with him. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Anthony.
My name's Anthony. I live in Chicago, Illinois with my girlfriend and a dog. I'm originally from Buffalo, New York. Like Casey's already said, we record the Reroll Expectations podcast together. There I play the role of Hourman, the sassy middle-class gnome wizard.
The sassy wizard.
Very sassy.
I think showboaty is a better word. I think he's a very uppity showboaty guy. Yeah, there's a lot of things, but we'll let you decide for yourself. For those of you that like D&D content, you can find us on Twitter at RerollCast, or I think our website is rerollexpectations.com.
Correct.
It's not a bad time.
Both those fronts.
So, smooth segue for it was, so you're originally from Buffalo, and you lived in Atlanta, and now you're in Chicago. How did that happen?
Well, not Atlanta, Nashville.
Sorry. Yeah. Similar that Will is our other guest on Reroll Expectations.
Yeah, so I grew up, born and raised in Buffalo, in the city of Buffalo, which I don't know about other cities, but there's the stark divide between city and suburban kids. So I like to point out, grew up in Buffalo.
Is that really an issue up there? Like city and suburban, like you're different class?
Yeah, full divide. Like there's just a little bit of like, we're really Buffalonians compared to the people from the suburbs that are like, I'm from Buffalo, but I actually grew up in Amherst. I don't know. It's a weird
like they're 30 minutes outside the city, so they're more like a small town type deal. Like
yeah, and then like they like to come downtown to like, I don't know, go to hockey games or like a concert or something, but like it's the type of place where their parents are like, don't go there because you'll get shot. It's just like, clearly that's
Is Buffalo that bad?
No, it's not. It's not. It's just like people in the suburbs have this predisposed opinion of what the actual city limits is like when, maybe outside of a few neighborhoods, it's not like that at all.
Huh. I mean, we don't have any kind of trouble with that around here. Like, there's a lot of small surrounding cities. And, like, you could say, like, this area a little bit. So, like, Meadville, maybe Pittsburgh, those two ring a bell? No, Meadville?
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
between. So people would say like I'm from Meadville. They won't say they're from Erie, but you can also say like since it's the closest city, like like I'm an Erie, PA resident, or I was born in Erie, or even closer than that. I know you're not expect you to know these, but there's areas right next to Erie: Girard, McCain, and Northeast. You probably know Northeast. I think you've mentioned it before. It doesn't matter if you
I
do,
mostly
but
know. I mostly know Bradford. I actually
Bradford.
knew a bunch of friends from Bradford. They were in a band, and they would basically call Buffalo their home place, but they would
Really?
play.
That's PA too. They could
I
probably identify
know.
with Jamestown way faster than they could identify with
Well,
Buffalo.
so when it comes to like a music market, it's way easier to like market out of a bigger city, and the closest
Obviously.
biggest city to check all the boxes would be Buffalo because it's only like maybe an hour drive. Erie,
Okay, that's fair.
surprisingly, from Bradford, what is like 45 minutes to an hour?
Um, it's funny that you mentioned that. So, my girlfriend just got back from like I don't know. I've been calling it a staycation. She basically she's like constantly booked. So she went and booked an Airbnb in Bradford, PA, by herself, and just spent like 6 days like not worrying about her phone, not worrying about tattooing, not having any expectations. And like just got back from that. Sunday was the last day, and so
It,
she went out there and she picked Bradford because it was really close to Holiday Valley, and so she went snowboarding twice. And so she was in Bradford and was talking about how small it is. She even went to the Zippo Museum because like there's not a whole lot to do there except for the Zippo Museum, and even bought me I actually have the box right here.
they got
It's
that.
a Jack Daniels set where it had a flask and a Zippo lighter that has Jack
Oh,
Daniels on it.
hell yeah! They also have that bridge and like a dam over there. Yeah, I
Sure.
guess there's some relatively cool stuff there, but no, yeah. So grew up Buffalo, New York. 2016, I was actually applying to go back to school for urban planning. All the while, I was working in the music industry as like a tour manager and like a promoter. Uh, and I took a temp job at a school photography company, just like working in their office, processing photos. The same week that I got rejected from Buffalo State to go back to school,
For urban
they
planning.
yeah, they rejected me. The company announced that they were moving their headquarters to Gallatin, Tennessee, which is just outside of Nashville. I was like, well, I got rejected from school, so I might as well see what's up. So I was like, hey, if you need anyone to move down from New York to the office, let me know. And they're like, yeah, we do actually. And
Nice.
so I got offered a job and like I had pretty decent
How much
benefits and
support
like a
did they give you?
salary. They gave me like a $1,500 moving stipend.
Okay, that's all. I
Uh,
was curious. Some people were like, "Yeah, like we help people that move," or it's like, "Whatever, come down." So,
it was the
and
lowest
that
I've
was for
had since
photography,
I've
right?
so I wasn't shooting photos. It was like their head office where like my role there was like the last step in the process before school photos get printed in the yearbook.
Okay, so like final editing or
Yeah, like
finishing essentially something down the line.
quality control, making sure names match faces, etc.
Yeah, nobody has a
Well,
blinky eye.
pretty much, yeah, that kind of stuff. And yeah, so
How'd you nail that gig? Like, was that just like a Craigslist thing, or someone recommended it, or
no, so my friend, his wife was working there as a temp as well, doing something else, but she was like, yeah, they probably need some help. And I was like, okay, let me get in there. And it was pretty good, like more money than I ever made at any other job, even though it was like $13 an hour or something, but I was
that's still
stoked.
really good? Did New York
It was
have the
great.
minimum at? When did they enact the $15 an hour minimum?
A while ago, but it's like incremental. It's not like all at once. So I think like Western New York's minimum wage at the time was like maybe like 10.50 an hour or something.
Okay, so you were above bar. I'm always curious,
Yeah,
really.
yeah, yeah. And then so the offer to move down there was for like 31 a year salary, which now I'm like, I would never take that. But at the
But you
time,
were
I'm like,
younger then. How old were you
this
at
is
the time?
incredible. I was 24.
I
Yeah.
mean, you still don't have your shit together. You still don't have any dependents. So,
No,
like, a lot
yeah.
of people at 24 could live off 31.
plus I didn't have like a degree or anything. So like, I'm like, that's pretty good for what I can do, especially like office
It's an
work.
adventure, and you're getting paid.
Yeah. It was, something fully new. I never thought that I would ever leave Buffalo.
How long were
I
you
love
there?
it. 24 years. So yeah,
No, no,
born and
no, no.
raised.
Like Nashville, like outside Nashville. How long were you there for?
Oh, so yeah, I moved to Nashville and I was there for 3 years. I did the school photo thing for like a year and a half, but then on the side, because Nashville is way more expensive of a city, I took a job with Lyft, the rideshare company, as like a customer success associate, just like part time, responding to emails and stuff. And then eventually just like took a full time job at Lyft and left the photo place.
Okay. So, yeah, the one of the things I wanted to get into is you were a big traveling manager for music. Now that is
Yeah.
a very specific job, and you've already told a lot of cool stories pertaining to it. So, how does one find themselves a traveling band manager?
So, I didn't have a car or a license for a long time. Like, I got my license when I moved to Tennessee. Because of that, there was a few things that made me really salty when it came to music, and that was like shows in neighboring cities that I couldn't get to. So
Really?
it motivated me to get into promotion and like booking shows. Like I've always been into like DIY punk, and some of the few friends that I made outside of Buffalo that were in bands, I asked them to come and play Buffalo, and eventually I just kind of learned how to do that. And not only would I like book them, but I would always offer them a place to stay at my apartments, cook them dinner, whatever, just like become friends with as many people as possible. And eventually, like they saw I'm pretty responsible as far as like handling money goes, and they would ask me to tour manage them and like sell
Okay.
t-shirts on tour and
So this
stuff like
guy's not
that.
just trying to have a banger and use our money. Like he'll actually be a nice guy. He made us a meal and gave us his couch. So like, he
Yeah.
checks out. And so
And
that turned into like way more traveling. Like you said, you used to go like all over the northeastern part of America.
I've done like two full US tours, then like a couple of regional tours in the
Oh, right.
eastern side of the
State
country.
line, countrywide, like across like Cali to New York.
Yeah. Like the first time I hit California was with a band called Firestarter from Albany, New York. And hitting the California border was just like
This is
it
probably a
felt
moment.
like manifest destiny, and
I'm
it was kind of
sure.
crazy getting there. Like I drove all night, which I had a permit, and they let me drive the van all night, van and trailer, all
Dude, I
through
think if
the.
you're permitted, I don't know about Buffalo, but at least in PA, they enacted like if you're a permitted driver, you can have like one guardian guest and nothing else. But you had a full van of like four people and like a shitload of equipment, like a 4,000 pound ride. And he was like, I'm
Yeah,
all in on caffeine.
all through the like Utah desert and Nevada desert, and then eventually like it wasn't my shift anymore to drive, so I was going to sleep. Like an hour later, they wake us up and they're like, "Yo, we're at the California border." They pulled over, took pictures at the side of the road, and it was awesome.
The
Still in the
sign,
desert.
essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It just all sunk in like
That
bright
was a cool
orange
moment for
sky.
everybody. They're like, whoa, like we're on our way to Hollywood to play some songs. Even though they're small gigs, I'm sure that's still like
Yeah,
super cool. Did they ever, anybody you ever, well, first off, how many bands had you managed in your stint?
I've tour managed 5 different bands.
Okay.
The first one I ever went on was terrible. It was like a week long. I tried to book it. Booking tours is not my thing. I suck. But it was a band called Cedar Kites from Buffalo. We played in like Long Island, and Taunton, Massachusetts, and then like back in Buffalo. I think we
Okay.
played a college show at Colgate too. But that was great. And then like the band that I set them up with was actually like my best friends and probably the biggest band I ever worked with. They're called Lake Pacific from Toronto, Canada. They
Okay.
were signed to like Pure Noise Records, and so I did their first 2 US tours. Their first one was with a band called Vanna from Boston. They're like a metalcore, hardcore band,
Okay.
and
Sounds
Brigades.
hardcore.
Yeah,
Anything with a V for some reason just always sounds hardcore.
and then Brigades from South Carolina. We drove all the way down there, had a crazy drive from like Pittsburgh to Greenville, South Carolina overnight. That sucked. That was like the first like,
That's pretty big.
all
I've
right,
been in
you're on
Greenville.
tour. You have this 8-hour drive overnight that you have to do. Good luck. And
Yeah.
sleeping in a van just sucks, especially if it's not built for that. Like there's just rows and
And you're
you
sleeping
have
on
to fit
equipment and
everyone's
stuff.
shit. So, yeah,
Yeah.
not ideal, but no, it was great. It was awesome. Got to go to like Charleston, South Carolina for the first time, which is one of my favorite places in the world. And then
Why
ending
aren't you
those
living there?
shows, in the Northeast with Vanna, who like drew, like 1,000 kids at every show is awesome. Like, that's when you're selling $1,000 plus in merch each of those
Yeah.
shows, seeing new kids that are like, yo, this band's sick. And it's
So
just
how are
like a
you
cool
financially
moment from seeing like
compensated for them?
Pacific play in front of like 10 kids in Toronto to eventually 100 kids in Toronto to like 1,000 kids in Boston. Just a very cool, humbling moment.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Cool. So, I know Greenville is really awesome. I have a family friend who lived down there, and we were down there recently. The reason I asked about how many, and you kind of precursored the next question, which was like, have you ever taken one of those bands and like opened for somebody more notable, like Nine Inch Nails or something?
No, never that big. The biggest for sure was when they toured with Vanna. Vanna is a band that at their peak, I think they were able to sell out like a 2,000 cap room in the Boston area, and then probably like 500 cap rooms in other places of the country, which is a good living.
That
Like
is really good for sure.
if you
That's
could
like a
do that,
decent job.
you're probably making anywhere between like 60 and 80K a year as a
Cool.
musician, and
Yeah, and if you love it and you don't get burned out, you could probably hold that. I mean, music suffers from novelty, so you have to like have some really diehard fans because there's always a new taste or somebody who does it different.
oh,
Just
it's
think
super
of
hard. Yeah, I mean, you just got to be uh, not only like very creative and write very good, strong songs that are going to hold up. You also have to have the charisma to get people to pay attention to you, because you could be the best songwriter in the world and no one will give a shit because you just can't hold a room.
sure. I've also seen I think it was a Reddit thread months ago that you can be like really musically talented and even like see situations where like maybe you can prove that. I can't remember the entire thread, but like you could be like the next Van Halen on the guitar, or you could be just a really good writer. But it also takes like a pretty decent deal of luck in order to like hit that next level. Finding that one guy who wants to sign for you, or somebody who is like the best marketer or whatever. Because there's plenty of bands out there where you go listen to them and you're like, holy shit, like some of these like Red Hot Chili Pepper like inspired bands, and you're like wow, like they offer some real talent, but you're like nobody knows of them.
Yeah, like I said, it goes back to like your own charisma and how much you can like draw the crowd in and just draw in people. Like if you're the type of person that is the center of gravity wherever you're at. Oh no, I think I lost you. Can you hear me?
No, you're good.
Okay.
It keeps dropping the latency, so
All right, I'll just drop video.
yeah, I'm just gonna go to talking. Carry on.
Cool. Yeah, like if you're the person that like is the center of gravity wherever you are and people are just drawn to you, that's when you're going to have those type of people that want to take a chance on you, especially if you can couple that with just like incredible work ethic. Um,
So how do you think Easy E made it?
for him, it was probably the charisma factor. Him and Ice Cube for sure. Just like
Now,
I
did you
don't know,
watch
man.
Straight Outta Compton?
I did, yeah.
So
I
I
think it
don't
was
know
pretty well
like
made.
the true. I know when they do a lot of those, they tend to be same goes for the Queen Bohemian Rhapsody, where they end up not being like the true story. They end up being, I think they call it a biopic or something like that, where it's a reinterpretation of the story while also stretched to fit more of a Hollywood linear path. So like all the details aren't perfect. Like they might create scenes.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so I wonder like what the real truth behind it is, but they really played it out to be like Easy E was a star child and like everybody else was like just the supporting members. So like I don't know a whole lot about it, but I just picture like from what they like expressed in that movie, it was like, oh, it was all about Easy E,
I mean, that's the dynamic for most bands, right? Like think about
the front
uh
man.
yeah, the front man. And it's not even always like the vocalist. It's just like the person that everyone is drawn to. So look at Fall Out
Yeah.
Boy is the only person that most people know is Pete Wentz, right? Like Pete
Okay.
Wentz doesn't even sing in the band, but he's the
They
focal
love
point.
him.
He was the one on like teen magazines dating Ashley Simpson. Like
Yeah, I know. Like another one that I've always heard, and I haven't been able to digest large volumes of their music, but Avenged Sevenfold, I hear the drummer that passed away was like the keystone of that band too. Is that true?
I don't I never really was into that band, but from what I can tell, like I feel like everybody in that band had star power, and there's super groups like that. Like Blink 182 is another band where each person in that band has the star power to really like command the stage on their own. Like
Sure,
Travis
that
Barker
helps
had
a
a TV
lot.
show on MTV. Like
Yeah.
Tom DeLonge is crazy enough that he's working with the FBI to find aliens, and then like
Is he
Mark
working with the
Hoppus is
FBI now? I know he was like
yeah.
like
He,
like 2018's like UFO investigator or something of the year or something, and I was like, whoa, he's come a long way. Like that's his thing
yeah.
now.
Yeah, he put out like there was an FBI report put out on UFOs that had like Tom DeLonge's input.
So I almost read his book after it came out, and I was like, "Oh, interesting." However, there was a guy of interest to me recently that was on Joe Rogan that was like he had a firsthand account of being abducted, and I was like, "What?" You know, and like, he's been having a lot more like proactive UFO experience. Like Commander Fravor is a big one recently. I don't know how much you like get into the whole alien research thing.
I'm not, but I should get into it more because, you know, I do believe that there's aliens.
So I will screen cap this for you so you can look his name up. I didn't go any further than his conversation with Joe Rogan, but this guy got abducted. He got alien abducted back in like I don't know the 70s or the 80s, and they made a movie about it. And I mean, I guess you have to like take everything that doesn't have physical evidence, like picture or video, with a grain of salt. But he also has a not Commander Fravor, but the other guy, Bob Lazar. Have you heard that name either?
No.
Okay. I'm not like a huge like proactive investigator of this UFO stuff, but I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan and he's very into aliens. So I like by what do they call that? Uh by defact or whatever, like I catch all this stuff because I listen to a lot of the Joe Rogan's guests because I think they're all interesting. But Bob Lazar is a cool one. He worked at a research facility that was trying to back engineer uh, not of this Earth origin technology. So like stuff that might have came in on a meteor or whatever, you know. But what was cool about him is his story was consistent from whenever he was like got out and started talking about it. And so he did like all of this without monetary gain. He never had like a slip up on a detail. Like he held his story, you know, and then he's been very under the radar. He hasn't like been, you know, crying wolf to like get attention off of it. You know, it just people that ended up finding about this. And there's a bunch of other things that go in about him, but that's not really something that like I need to. But I liked him in comparison to Travis Walton, and I bring him up because he also said Travis Walton's story has been the same since it happened in the 80s, and he talks about like what happened and his experience waking up disoriented, and you know, at best it's entertaining if you're not like a super diehard UFO guy. So the three people, if you want to maybe dip your toes into the surface, are the Bob Lazar, David Fravor, and Travis Walton. Those three are all like the best information that I've seen to date about like anything regarding extraterrestrials. Super cool.
I will definitely check it out.
Yeah. So Bob Lazar was, just to give you a rundown of each, Bob Lazar was a propulsion expert, super nerd, like, and he was in the paper for putting a jet engine on a Honda back in like the 80s or something. My dates are going to be off, but just, you know, work with me, like probably like late 70s, early 80s. And so he ended up getting like introduced to some people that wanted to give him this job. And he talked about like working with, you know, like this anti-gravity thing and like describing stuff and then like talking about an element that didn't exist on the periodic table, and then we discovered it on a public scientist level like 30 years later. And he talked about this like 30 years ago. And so like he ended up getting fired because he started like taking people out into the desert, like backyard barbecue style, and like showing his friends like them testing piloting stuff. And so they were like, "Yep, you're done." And then like, you know, removed him from existence, fired him from his job, and then like wiped his evidence off of like the company that he worked for before that they fired him. And like he took people like into the building and like said hi to everybody and like showed them around. Meanwhile the company was saying that like they'd never had him. It's super crazy. The Bob Lazar, that's Bob Lazar. The other Commander Fravor was a high ranking officer, fighter jet pilot who was going to a predetermined destination, and they had a unknown aircraft that was at about 60,000 feet elevation, and they were trying to identify it, and it actively jammed their radar, which is a sign of an act of war in any nation, to actively jam somebody's active radar, to like say, hey, I'm not here, don't look at me. That's like deception. Like it's like, hey, dude, what are you doing? So it actively jammed it, didn't allow them to track it. He had to switch to manual cam, and then he tracked it from 60,000 feet to about 10 feet off sea level in a matter of a second and a half, which is just, this is a high ranking military officer. Like, he doesn't just shoot the shit for fun. You know what I mean? Like, they have nothing but code and honor, This isn't like some guy who's like, oh, I was in the Marines and I've seen some shit in Baghdad. Like, this guy has been in the service for a long time, and he's consistent. So there's a lot of interviews with him on the internet talking about his interaction with, they call it the tic-tac shaped vessel. And then the Travis Walton is him as a lumberjack, whatever year he got abducted, and talking about how they stumbled upon it at the end of the day. And then he talks about like waking up disoriented and vague details. But I mean, that one's a little bit more like it's his account. So whereas you can actually, I think you can see the video of David Fravor, like him free camming it on this jet. And so like that one has more evidence. And, after some of those started to come out, like the FBI acknowledged that it's something that, or was it the Pentagon acknowledged that it was something that it needed to look into. So the whole UFO thing's been like really taken off in recent time.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's just been so much evidence, and like, so many people believe in it. I really wish that the raid on Area 51 was successul.
Yeah.
All the battle plans people drew up, Naruto.
The best that came out of that was the Naruto running guy. The one that got internet famous just for Naruto running away from the security guard.
It's so good.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, those are pretty cool. For somebody who's not like, it hasn't really inspired me to like go and like pursue more, but it's definitely been like, okay, like I'm more agnostic than ever, that like, okay, there's probably something. And when that time comes, like I'll be less surprised, but I'm also not like putting multiple hours of my week into like pursuing UFO information.
Yeah, like I firmly believe there is extraterrestrial life. Statistically, it's just like so unlikely that we're the only beings in the entire universe.
Oh yeah,
that live. Now, if they made contact, I don't know. Yeah, I'm the same as you. Probably like, I wouldn't be super shocked if they proved it. But
yeah, that's a pretty good one. How did we even get on this topic? I don't even know how we got
Tom
here.
Tom DeLonge, fucking.
Right, yeah. So that's crazy that he came from like this really good like pop punk band to like, you know what? I'm more interested in UFOs now. I don't want to be a superstar anymore.
He bought his first computer and got on the internet to look up UFO stuff. He's been into it forever. I mean, the song on Enema of the State, Aliens Exist, is about just like how much he believes that aliens have made contact and been to Earth. So it's like been his thing forever.
Yeah.
And it's funny that he's like finally realizing or like making big headway on that front. It's just like, what an interesting guy. Like, how do you become arguably the biggest rock band in the world and then work with the FBI on UFO studies? It's just, it's incredible.
I was unaware that he was working with them. That's cool.
Yeah, it's crazy.
No doubt about that. Yeah, aliens, man.
But that just goes into it. Like, that's the type of like personality and like draw you need as a person.
Too, for sure. To go from that you have a life made, you have an awesome career that a lot of people aspire for. I mean, I'm sure some people have negative things to say about being a superstar, but he was like, this ain't me. I already made enough money. I'm gonna go look for UFOs. Like, that's pure passion.
Yeah. And I kind of like weirdly compare like musicians to athletes. Like, for both of those, you pretty much have to dedicate your life to your craft and getting better.
Yeah, that's not weird. It is definitely perfection.
But then it's also like having the type of personality to just like draw people to you and like have people want to help you and reach out. I mean, sure, there's like rich people that can just like pay to bypass that, but
yeah,
there's other groups of people that just like have the charisma. And I think that's the case for most like creative fields or like stuff that takes just like an incredible dedication is like learning how to network. I think networking is like the most powerful thing you could do ever to
Mm-hmm.
like advance yourself. I mean, all of the jobs that I've gotten have basically been through connections that I made in the music industry, because eventually
Yes.
most people graduate out of it and like move on to their regular lives and their careers. And so like the photo place, my friend Jeff, I knew because of the music scene, and his wife got me the job.
Yep.
And then with Lyft, my friend Nick is a great photographer. Nick Zimmer Photography, shout out. Referred me to Lyft as a part-time customer experience associate. I worked my way up through two separate promotions to do like cool scooter stuff, and that's what got me in the door to like be pretty comfortable and settled in my life. And then I moved to Chicago after Lyft decided they didn't want scooters in Nashville anymore, because
Hmm.
my old boss at Lyft, we got really close talking about music because he used to play for a band that played Warped Tour and shit, like
That's
that's
pretty
just
good.
kind of
You
how it
make it on
goes.
Warped
Yeah.
Tour.
Yeah. He did really well. He was also in Ryan Cabrera's first band.
I'm not familiar with who that is, but sounds good.
Ryan Cabrera is like a singer songwriter from the 2000s who was pretty big. I think he might have also dated Ashley Simpson, weird enough. I
So
can't
everybody
remember.
revolves around Ashley Simpson.
Yeah.
So
And
you made me think. Oh, so my dad always said it's not what you know, it's who you know, because sometimes that
always.
can take you just as far. The other thing was, and it's gone.
No, but that's 100% right. Like, if you can get people to like you enough that they want to help you, like that's going to get you so much further than your
Oh,
actual just like resume.
the reference to Tom DeLonge. So you keep coming back to your charismatic capabilities. Now, do you think that completely trumps people's ability to create like a body of work? And a quick and first person that comes to mind is like um, J.K. Rowling. I don't know anything about her outside of her body of work for Harry Potter, but like I don't know that she's a charismatic person. She was like a wife that just was a writer, and then now her body of work has propelled her into mainstream. So I think there's two different routes here, or maybe it's a combination of both. Being a good band is a body of work, but also being a charismatic superpower helps you appeal to other people.
I mean, we don't know how, like, I don't know specifically how J.K. Rowling was when she was first writing Harry Potter. Maybe she was that type of charismatic person that was able to walk into a room and command the attention of publishers that want to put out this book that,
Ooh,
for all intents and purposes, was very well written for the time and, like, was an instant hit and success. And just because she's changed her opinions on a lot of things, or like really established her opinions on different things that made her a little less liked in the public eye, doesn't mean that she doesn't have that charisma still to be able to just like take the attention of the room and
yeah.
like
So
get her
we'd have
shit
to know
done.
more
you know
information. You're definitely right.
there's just like people that can get shit done no matter what they want to do, and that's because they can almost bend people's wills to want to do that for them.
Yep. So what I was
So
saying before I lost you was so I believe from your Lyft enterprise to now it kind of got you into tech. Is that what you're doing these days?
yeah, I mean, Lyft was tech too. Like, so after I was doing like
Yes.
customer support, I was in like growth marketing. I was on a team called Driver Growth, and so basically, we tried to make like onboarding Lyft drivers as painless and easy as possible. And yeah, that was the first time I really felt like challenged in work, and also felt like I was building something that was like really beneficial to wherever I was working.
Cool.
I got to like go to San Francisco, meet the CEO and president of the company, which was insane. And like all these
Manifest
like
destiny again.
all these like high up people like hovering over my computer watching us do shit. I'm like
Right. That brings me back to
freaking out.
California. Actually, I wanted to ask when you were doing this traveling band managing thing for these people that were like, sort of big, but not really. How did that like support you fiscally? Like, did you just get like a percentage off the top of merch or?
Yeah, that was always my rate. I took like 10% of the merch, and then whatever tips I would make, which wasn't a ton. Like, I think the most I ever made in a week might have been like 400 or 500 bucks. So
Yeah, enough to
not
feed
like a
yourself.
ton. Yeah, enough to feed myself while I'm on tour. Like, I basically felt like I was on a somewhat paid vacation, and then I
Cool.
would save up
You're
whatever
traveling.
like time, like vacation time I had from my part-time job. Shout out to Radio Shack.
Oh gosh.
Uh, yeah, I
Are they
love Radio
completely
Shack.
foreclosed? Like, is there any of those left?
I think there's like franchise locations still,
Let me
and then they have
see.
like a web store.
I'm gonna Google Map. Excuse
I think
me.
they have a partnership with some hobby store too to like have mini Radio Shacks inside of them to just like stock shit.
It says that we have one, two, three, four of them in Erie, and I'm actually not sure that that's correct.
I
Fine
bet they're
wines. That one's
franchises.
definitely not there. Yeah, that one's totally not there. That one's totally not there. That one's totally not there. These okay, so these are like all old Radio Shacks. Like there's four in our city, and I just real quickly could tell you that there's no Radio Shack in those locations. That's
There's no
hilarious.
corporate stores for sure. Like they're extinct.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. So running and backpedaling all the way back to prior to those two endeavors, how did urban planning become like the thing?
So, you know how earlier I specified that I grew up like in the city of Buffalo.
Yeah.
So I've always loved the big city lifestyle, the architecture. I like walkable neighborhoods. I don't want to like always be in a car to get to wherever I have to go. I love public transit.
Yeah, you
I'm
do. You've
like a
expressed that.
fucking nerd about public transit. Buffalo is like one little train line that's above ground downtown and then goes underground to the university. And when I was like a little kid, I would make my dad take me on the train to go all the way down there and back, just to ride it, I guess.
Yeah, you liked your trains when you were young, huh?
Yeah, dude, I fucking love trains. And so I've always felt like that's the direction I want to go. Like my favorite book is The Death and Life of Great American Cities by Jane Jacobs. I
Ooh.
personally think suburban development has like
COVID has
destroyed
guillotined suburban
destroyed cities. No,
cities.
I think COVID has helped the suburbs actually. Like people don't take transit during
I
a
meant to say
pandemic. So,
cities, not suburbs. Like
oh yeah,
cities
yeah,
have absolutely been decimated in some places because of COVID.
they have, but it's temporary. Like it's
Yeah,
gonna come back. Like as millennials specifically have a lot of desire to live in cities.
yeah.
For whatever it is, maybe it's just because like our parents and their parents valued that like more open suburban lifestyle, but we think it's pretty bland and
Mm-hmm.
boring and like cultureless and like
Mm-hmm.
suburbs in general are pretty segregated. So like there's been a big push to go back into cities, and that's why other places are like growing and
Well, I
uh,
think this pandemic has definitely made a lot of people realize that living in cities isn't necessary for the people that don't want to because of the shift towards online working. But I think there's definitely the people that are like busy and like novelty and like not like simple living like thrive in cities because there's like always something going on, whereas like the suburban like come home, make dinner, read a book, go to church every Sunday, or like just really slow, steady. And I don't mean this in any type of derogatory like thing, but like when you're in the suburbs you can kind of live life at your pace, whereas you could be in a city and like there's something just always going on around you.
I think it's all going to balance out eventually. Like, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of people that are working remote that don't really want to live in the city life, and so they're relocating to other places. Like I've just heard about Bozeman, Montana, having like a crazy rent crunch because so many like tech people
People from
from
California
yeah,
saying yep,
yeah, and like the Pacific Northwest, and then even places like New York City are moving out there because,
yep.
yeah, they don't value the city life. They value their job in the city. But then
Mm-hmm.
I do think there's a big subset of people that wanted to live in the city, but maybe didn't have the means to do so. But now with rents cratering in a lot of places, they're able to move in from the inner ring
Sure.
suburbs closer to downtown because it's affordable. Like there's people in downtown Chicago able to negotiate their rent down like 25 to 30%.
Nice.
Just yeah. So
Something that might come to mind for me too is I picture. I remember hearing about snippets of this for people that lived in West Coast because the like Los Angeles or Santa Fe, for example, like the housing is just ridiculous. Like a $500,000 home, like is basically in an alley and like doesn't have a yard, and then like studios are like $2,500. This is all just a crunch and assumption of like some people's numbers, but essentially like the mean income to like the housing inflation number over there is insane. So people would do things like live in basically like RVs that they were upfront costs, and then they would work in the city and get that nice, whatever, $110,000 inside sales manager at X big tech company, and then their housing would be like a tenth of their income or so. Where right now, I think some of these tech companies, like Facebook, for example, that are like, I think Facebook and Google are like completely remote. Imagine being West Coast and making West Coast money, which is inflated because of their cost of living, and then just moving to Bozeman, Montana, which is like a third to a half the cost of living, and being able to maintain the same salary. I don't know if that's the case, but that's what my brain's thinking is like, dude, like
Yeah, yeah.
if they're completely remote now, like why would I live here? Why don't I move to Buffalo or Erie where the mean living cost is like 25,000? Do you know what I mean?
It's absolutely crazy the cost of living in San Francisco.
Yeah,
Like
I've
it's
heard horror stories.
unfathomable to me. It's probably like the biggest failure with just like how we operate as a country, like especially over there. It's weird, like everyone always talks about like the right left divide, but most of the housing issues is because very left leaning people are very anti development over there. And so
I
it's like,
disagree. I think it's just fundamental supply and demand, and I'm sure
well,
you're a little more urban planning, so I'm going to respect your answer. But I think when your density goes up and living quarters can't adapt, price has to go up. It's a fundamental thing, and it might have something to do with it, but it might not be the grand cause.
so their density could for sure go up, but California has some of the most restrictive zoning laws in the country,
I have
and
heard that.
it takes a lot to overcome that.
Like they
And
have
so
to people avoid building there because like the requirements in order to make a house starts with like, oh well, you have this small lot that's half the normal size of a lot, but it needs to have 6 foot of yard, and then like and like I remember someone explaining it, and they were like, dude, the housing market's so unattractive to anybody in the LA region because it costs them an extra 10,000 off the top of stuff that isn't necessary, so they don't make money.
and the neighborhood associations have incredible power in California. So like a neighborhood can just say we're going to veto this development even though it'll add X% to our housing stock and hopefully help people be able to live and not be homeless, but because it doesn't fit the character of the neighborhood, we're just going to decline. Like we don't want this in our neighborhood. And so yeah, it's like a lot of the housing issues in California is like self-imposed, people just being really shitty and selfish.
Huh.
It's probably more opinionated that I say that. Like I'm sure there is definitely some value to like, oh, I bought in this neighborhood because of the way it is, I want it to stay that way. And like I do respect that, but
Yeah.
like they've got to figure something out. Like it's just like a monumental failure of what's going on.
All right. Well, I have a couple more other questions, but are topics that I guess I want to cover. But I'm going to get into the first question of the podcast
Go for it.
because we're about a strong 45 minutes in, and I haven't asked you yet. So the first question I generally ask everybody is, what was in your mental breakfast this morning?
My mental breakfast.
Yeah, what was in your mental breakfast this morning?
I mean, I'm moving this weekend, so everything I've been thinking about is regarding moving, like logistics and like I have to
That
fucking
urban
pack
planning.
everything. Yeah, like I have to talk to the aldermen of both the neighborhoods that I'm moving to so that I can get these signs to put up to block the parking spots off for my
Alderman?
U-Haul. Like, yeah, city aldermen in Chicago, you can go and get like signs to block out certain parking spots.
I was going to say, why have I never
so you
heard
can
of
park your
that?
truck. Yeah,
Alderman.
they actually have quite a bit of power in Chicago. They could veto developments on their own. So it's
So he
pretty
helps
interesting.
you coordinate a move because you need to have U-Haul parking. Because I'm guessing parking's a premium if you're too close to the city.
Yeah, and like some places it's not too bad. Like my neighborhood right now isn't bad, but for a 26-foot U-Haul or a 16-foot U-Haul even,
Yeah,
not that easy.
sure.
So you could just get these unenforceable signs that say like, please don't park here between these hours because someone is moving.
And then what happens if they don't obey? You can call
I
a
mean,
tow and it's warranted.
no, it's not enforceable. So it's more just
Oh,
like a courtesy thing.
okay. Huh. Then you said aldermans have a lot of power, but all they do is offer a soft warning or a soft suggestion.
I mean, they have power over like other things, like aldermen together, basically like the House of Reps members for the neighborhoods, right? And so Chicago being the third biggest city in the country, like
Is
that
it?
does hold a lot of weight. Yeah, Chicago land is the third biggest metro area in the country, and the city is the third highest population
Let me
in
guess.
the
New
country.
York, Los Angeles, Chicago.
Yeah, yeah. And
Okay.
then I think like fourth might be Houston or Dallas or something. I don't know.
Ooh, yeah. My other guess would be also Atlanta. I think Atlanta's probably in the top 10 for sure.
Oh yeah, and Phoenix and Miami. They're all massive, massive cities. San Francisco would be up there if they included San Jose in the statistics, but they do not. They're two separate metro areas.
Yeah, you definitely know your stuff when it comes to this urban planning, and it
Dude,
shows.
I look at like maps and census data for my own enjoyment way too much.
Hey,
It's
dude,
fucking
everybody has something
stupid.
that makes them happy.
Yeah, it's weird. I love looking at it. I love comparing how it was. I spent probably like 30 minutes of my workday looking at the like racial dot map that exists from the 2010 census. Did you ever see that map?
No, I have not.
So each color dot represents like one person of a race. And so you could see visually just like how segregated a lot of places are.
Really? Can you
It's
send me a
incredible.
link that I can find like any region, like even my
Yeah,
own,
let
for
me
example? That
find
would be
it.
really interesting.
US dot color.
I've never like seen anything that was formal from the census, though. I'm pretty sure I probably wouldn't be able to find it. I've always heard stories like we have regions in Erie, like Fairview is generally really wealthy people, or like I don't know, football coaches, and I don't know, just really, really, really generally pretty. They're doing good for themselves, like expensive land, and I've heard stories of like anything above 38th and Green Garden was like historically almost all white. Like it never didn't have a lot of ethnic groups at all. And I've heard stories, but like there's nothing really to back it aside from I have to take their word for it.
Yeah, I found the map. I'm just trying to copy the link. It's a
Cool.
pain when I don't have a mouse and like a keyboard. I'm just on my tablet.
So this is why you like City Skylines, huh?
Oh yeah,
How often do you
it's a
play
great game.
it?
I actually don't play it that much. I watch like YouTube content on it.
Okay. Yeah, I told you guys in one of the podcasts that I got my buddy off of City Skylines onto Oxygen Not Included, but I don't know that that would necessarily apply to you because you're really into the urban planning, but they take the micromanaging aspect, it's like SimCity slash colony management, like slash like structural engineering, and kind of like they both really like cater towards that. I like to say it's like candy for an ADHD brain. Like there's a lot of things that are like going on and a lot of maintenance and like setup, and it's complicated to like put into a quick summary, but like it's a really good game. And he's like, yeah, I'll never go back to City Skylines. This one's like way better.
I would try it. I probably need a better setup. I'll send you this link later. I have the link set up. It's just hard to do on my tablet. It's weird. I need a mouse, but I don't want to get up.
Cool. So moving logistics is anything in particular? Like you just pretty much crossing all your T's and dotting all your I's because you're moving in a few days?
Yeah, I had to hire movers because I unfortunately didn't get to make that many friends here, being that I moved right before a
Craigslist,
global
bro.
Pandemic.
Spread some COVID.
Uh, I just hired movers through. I rented through Budget Truck. So
What is that's a company called Budget Truck? A Budget Truck, like a local company?
yeah, they're nationwide budget. They do budget car rental. You ever see those? And then
No.
it's just like a competitor to U-Haul.
We're a city, but we're pretty like small town and behind when it comes to Erie. Like for being you know, I think it's pretty like swings, not swing state, but like swing city. Like we're pretty split between like conservative and liberal. Like you could drive down
Oh,
the
they
street and you'll find it 50-50. But as far as like when politics really makes an impact to a region, like we're super conservative. Like and we're not very progressive. Like a lot of stuff takes a long time to like make its way over here. Like the
uh,
entire
they
West Coast has had Uber for a year before we even get it. Like that kind of slow.
they call Erie the bellwether city of Pennsylvania. Like whichever way Erie votes is how the state votes for the most part.
Interesting. So they because it isn't. It isn't. I can tell you for sure, it's not largely Democratic, but it's not largely conservative either, or Republican. Like, it's a big mix. Like, I know a lot of people. It's literally 50-50. Like, I can see if you live in a city and you run into just largely liberal people, or you're out in the country, vice versa. But like, I could go downtown and I can just like, you can see conservative ideas everywhere. Like, even businesses in the city have Trump propaganda, and it's just like, I guess this is my world, so I want to experience it like in a different city. Me and Jeff talked about how he liked like Salt Lake City, Utah, but he could tell that they were like extreme conservative, and he felt like a zit like being in the presence of the city, because like everything was just really Mormon, and like they had one bar, and like it was just all. I mean, I'm not trying to like set up
Salt
boundaries.
Lake is the one of the weirdest places I've ever been in my life.
Yeah, so I'm guessing you did a band cover there or something.
It's I don't know, man. They have a great punk scene. I don't know if you knew this.
Nope.
Um, Great punk scene. Surprisingly, very very good. And they have a big straight edge community. And my theory on that is like
Mormon.
a lot of the kids there want to rebel from like their Mormon upbringing, but still retain some of it, like the sobriety that comes with being Mormon. And they channel that into like a very aggressive and violent straight edge scene that attacks most people that aren't straight edge, and it's a fucked up weird place.
Okay. So excellent that you brought that up, and it ended up here, because one of the things I wanted to mention was how you became dry or straight edge. Like, everybody has a different type of push towards that, and you just decided that, not for me. Like, how'd that go?
Yeah, I mean, being pretty frank, like I grew up in a family that did not shy away from substances, whether liquid or
Any of the other?
physical. Yeah, yeah. And so and not always in like the worst way, just people that were pretty open about what they wanted to do and like what they did do. And I just grew up in a way that like I didn't want to be that. Like I rejected all of that. I wasn't always sober though. Like I never got drunk, but like my parents would be like, here, have this beer, or like here,
Sure.
have this shot or whatever when I was like 15. And like, I don't know, I hated the taste. And it was just like, it never appealed to me, like that type of like environment where people are just like getting fucked up, or just even bars, like I just feel uncomfortable, like it just doesn't
Yeah.
fit me unless it was like a show or something, but whatever. And then yeah, I got more into punk music, and the straight edge movement came from the hardcore punk scene, and it
Is
just
there a lot
clicked.
of
Like
straight edge underneath the punk genre?
hardcore punk specifically. So the band Minor Threat from DC put out the song Straight Edge in like 83 or something like that. And that's kind of where it started. It
Hmm.
grew from like the DC hardcore scene. And yeah, it's grown for sure, slowly but surely, and going through different phases. One of my favorite books is actually Straight Edge and like radical politics, and kind of like navigating straight edge's history through like radical leftist politics, moving on to like even in the 90s, it was like radical right politics. It's gone through many phases, and it's a super interesting subgenre of people, I think.
Interesting. I don't think I'd ever attach. Man, it's cool hearing that, because I don't think I'd ever attach any type of substance use to either side. I guess maybe the left, because like conservatives, of course, the being dry, not drinking. So the interesting thing that this makes me think of, that I actually just kind of sort of had a conversation with this to my mom, where like the act of suppressing somebody's choice to do something is actually like worse than like giving them the understanding of it. And I think this conversation came from guns. So like, maybe a kid might get in trouble with dad's shotgun because he wants to play with it and he wants to find out what it is, because of like, when you're young, novelty, you pursue novelty, you want to find out what it is. Whereas, the responsible father that, at least like takes you shooting once. So you're like, oh, if you ever want to go shooting, son, like talk to me. Don't like try to break the rules and get access to the guns and then hurt yourself. And I think the same can apply to, I mean, there's a lot more to it than that. Obviously, you need to be responsible and watch how kids can handle guns, ammo, all that stuff, like if they can even get to it. But and other things that you can't control, like substances. Like everybody's got a story of like a 12-year-old son or somebody's nephew that's getting into vaping. And I've seen like personal experiences where like both of my parents and everybody around me smoked cigarettes when I was growing up, and I wanted nothing to do with them. Don't get me wrong. I'll enjoy nicotine from like a corncob pipe or a cigar or maybe a vape like when I drink, but like I don't have that same type of like desire. I think kind of sort of the same with alcohol, because like certain circles and situations where I was with my dad, like hunting camp or going to one of his friends for a birthday party or New Year's party, they would let me have a couple beers, like responsibly. I'd be 15. They would be like, yeah, you can have a couple. And then like, if I wanted to drink, then I'm like, cool, I could. And I didn't always. Whereas like some people that I think this comes back to, this one might be controversial, but it comes back to like, they always say that like Christian schoolgirls are like the dirtiest because they've had to like suppress all these sexual desires. I mean, do you like side with any of that?
I mean, I'm not going to comment on that specifically, but I think it's like the novelty of like, it's the forbidden fruit, right?
Yeah,
Like, it's the
right.
thing that like was always stigmatized and something that you couldn't have. And so when you finally have a little bit of freedom to do
It's
it,
like,
most people
sweet
go off on the
retribution.
deep end. Yeah, that's why like I'm very thankful that I grew up in kind of a loose, open household that was like just very upfront about people's vices and like didn't shy away from it. It's like, like if anyone had a serious issue, it wasn't like accepted, but it was like understood, right? Like it wasn't like,
Yeah.
oh, your uncle's a piece of shit
Alienating them or
because he's a
something.
junkie. No, it's like, he's going through these problems. And like I think it one helped me to like realize that I wanted to avoid all of that altogether. And then two, which took me a little longer to get to, is that like just because I don't do something doesn't mean I have to dislike people that do something. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And
As long
so
as it
like
doesn't
that.
have any impact on you, like somebody liking something
Exactly.
that, like I'm really for abortion or something, and then it's
Yeah,
like that. That's not really the same, or sorry, anti-abortion, and then it can have an impact on you and your relationship if that, that becomes a problem. I think that's not exactly the best example, but I know what you're talking about.
yeah, just like in my mind, like it did take me a while to get here because like when I was in high school, I was kind of an asshole about it. Like I was, felt like I was superior to people, like which is so stupid to think about now. Like clearly
Because
I'm
you
not.
didn't
Like
like abuse things, you weren't looking for the next big party.
yeah, but it's stupid to think about now. But like my upbringing did bring me to the point though where like I can respect people that think differently than me, especially when it comes to like straight edge, which is something I hold very dear to myself. Like I have straight edge tattoos, like I have this big ass straight edge flag next to me.
That's cool,
So
man. Own it.
it's something that's really important to me. But even if I do decide to have kids, like I'm not going to like force them to be straight edge. I want them to know what it is. I want them to know what other options are, which I'm sure they're going to find out anyway, because like maybe if I do have kids with my current partner, she's not straight edge, so like they would learn from her, or like in media,
Yeah.
it's very popular there too, and so like yeah, I just want everyone to
They're
know
gonna get
like there are
exposed
other
to it.
options.
Making it the forbidden
Like
food is what fascinates me. That like the gun thing. Like, oh, I really want to. I see all these guns on TV, and then like they get into the gun, and it causes problems, or they go over to their friends and sneak alcohol out of their parents' cabinet because they've never like. Not that you should be giving your kids alcohol, but you shouldn't like suppress the idea of it. Like this is what it is. You shouldn't get into it. I don't know. There's a lot of complications in parenting.
yeah, there's lines, man, and you know what? Maybe I'm not set out to be a parent because like I don't know how to truly set those lines,
I don't
especially
think
for so
anybody
many different
does,
things.
dude.
Like
Everybody figures it out as they go, man.
yeah. And so I don't know. I do think that that's the case though. Like I don't think you should ever stigmatize something unless it's like really bad. Like obviously you can't like normalize certain things like pedophilia or something. I don't know. You
Yeah.
can't
I wish
like
I could
yeah. There's
remember more perfectly, but my mom gave an example to suppressing something, or like I think it was in regards to my nephew and like my sister's struggle with him, and he's like 12 or something now, and so like they got caught vaping, and then so like we are cleaning the house and she was talking to me about it, and I don't remember like how I got there, but I was like she made an astute example like, oh, your sister drinks a lot, so like I'm wondering if like that's gonna whatever. And I was like, but like mom, you and my dad both smoked cigarettes my entire life. You both were stoners my entire life. You know, I was around people smoking all the time, and like I don't actively smoke nicotine or marijuana. Like I just it's not my thing. So like you can't say that you're guilty by like association. So that was basically the gist of it. Like,
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think it's just like treating your kids like, people and not like your little slaves or someone to control. It's like they're their own people and they have their own choices to make. And you're just there to guide them to hopefully make the best decisions for them and for the rest of their life. And it's not like making that decision for them. And that goes for like everybody. Like I've helped out friends that were going through some really serious addiction issues or like issues where they were selling something and needed to get out of that lifestyle, and never judge them for that, because it's shit happens, life happens.
mm-hmm.
I'm not going to feel superior to anybody. I've fucked up so many things in different ways.
Specific study about, of course, with mice because they're the perfect guinea pigs. Like something about how um, like humans and animals in existence when exposed to narcotics, and I think they used, I don't know, it was methamphetamine, cocaine, one of them, but the rat had like free access to it. But what they did is they put it in a depraved condition where like it didn't have any other rats in the cage, or like it maybe didn't have enough food or didn't get exercise, and so it would choose this like vice to cope with something that was making it unhappy. Whereas when they put it in a more scientifically idealistic rat environment, you know, with like X amount of rats with X amount of space and exercise, they would not have any like care towards whatever that narcotic was that they were giving them. They would like almost never touch it. So they're trying to draw lines that people with abuses aren't necessarily the forbidden fruit, but they're in situations like you just said, like they're going through something, or you know, they're just using a vice.
Yeah, that's why I'm pretty much fully on the decriminalize all drugs train. Like
I need to look
treat
into Oregon,
addiction,
dude.
treat addiction like a disease, not a crime. Those people should not be in jail.
Yeah, I
You're
have
only going
not
to make it
followed up
worse.
on Oregon at all because they've done essentially that and decriminalized everything. And like I don't care too much, but like every time this conversation comes up, I'm like, dude, what's Oregon like right now?
Yeah, I think in Vancouver they have like safe injection sites, and like uh,
Oh, I have heard that.
OD deaths have fallen.
Actually, not
Like
Vancouver. I heard about Europe, that or maybe like one of the major countries like French or France or Spain, that they have an active like clinic that literally tries, like they'll give you, like you said, safe injection. Like, oh, you're going through withdrawals. Here's a healthy, non-stepped off, no fentanyl version of, you know, whatever you're addicted to, and we'll ease you off of it and help you get your life back on track.
yeah, that's how you should handle it. Like people need to be treated like people, man. As soon as like you think someone's like less than you for whatever reason, like they're never going to get better. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can't just throw them in jail. Like that's not going to help anybody.
Yeah.
And it's costing us money. Like the prison system is terrible.
Well, actually, isn't the prison system self-funding so that it's actually more of a business model now? I thought that was like one of the big things. Even like System of a Down like to talk about that. Like
Well,
it's
there's private prisons, but private prisons rely on having more people incarcerated, obviously.
mm-hmm.
And so, sure, it might be costing a little less per prisoner, but because they rely on full prisons, more people are going to prison, which is not helping anybody
Yeah.
except for the lining the pockets of these private prisons. Also, slavery is legal as long as you're a prisoner.
Mm-hmm. I've
So
seen that. There's a documentary on it. I didn't watch it, but I watched one of the main like segments talking about whichever amendment it was. Forgive me for not knowing.
13th.
13th. Okay, I thought I was going to say
Yeah.
23 because I knew there was a 3, and how it's been kind of messed with to allow that to be okay, like free labor essentially.
Yep. So there's a great line by Run the Jewels. Let me find the song. Uh, I mean, Killer Mike has always just been kind of saying it like it is, and a lot of things that people don't talk about. So let me find the exact line. Okay. The way I see it, you're probably freest from the ages 1 to 4. Around the age of 5, you're shipped away for your body to be stored. They promise education, but really they give you tests and scores, and they predict in prison population by who's scoring the lowest. And usually the lowest scores are the poorest, and they look like me. And every day on the evening news, they feed you fear for free.
They do feed you fear for free.
Yep. And then and you're so numb, watch the cops choke out a man like me until my voice goes from a shriek to whisper, I can't breathe. You sit there in the house and on the couch, and watch it on TV. The most you give is a Twitter rant and call it a tragedy, but truly the travesty. You've been robbed of your empathy, replaced it with apathy. I wish I could magically.
You can tell the lyrics, huh?
Oh, dude, yeah.
It's noisy poetry without the noise.
Yeah, he's incredible. But yeah, he's basically saying that like they're really loading up the prison population just because like it's free labor.
Yep. I get it.
It's fucked up. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
You should watch the Meek Mill documentary.
Meek Mill, really? He has a documentary? I don't even listen to his music.
Oh, dude.
I'll write it down.
I don't really listen to his music either, but so in 2008 he was arrested through like a very sketchy means, like a raid on his cousin's house, who was selling, but like he didn't have anything to do with it. He was just there, but he got arrested on like intention to sell, but he never had anything on his person. They just said he did because he was there.
And they were able to sentence?
Well, yeah, he went to jail for a little while, and then he was put on a 10-year parole.
Wow.
10-year. And then the judge had this like obsession with him and was always trying to fuck him over and send him back to jail over breaking parole, whether it was just something stupid like
Failed
being late to his show or something.
Huh.
Like, no, because he had to submit his tour dates in advance. And so one time, like, the airport was closed. Like, he had to, his itinerary said that he was flying from New York to Atlanta. And then Hurricane Sandy happened and the airport there was shut down. So he had to drive to Philadelphia to fly to Atlanta.
And he was late?
Well, he got pulled over on the way to the airport. And the cop was like, oh, you're not supposed to be in Pennsylvania based on your itinerary. So then he went to jail.
Man.
Over like a violation. Dude, it's nuts.
I wonder if he could fight that like with his lawyer, be like, yo, here's my intentions. You can prove that the flight was canceled.
She never cared about his lawyers. He had the best lawyers, right? He was signed to Rock Nation. Meek Mill is a huge rapper.
Crazy.
But she had this like obsession with him. She brought him in for like, I think over 50 like parole violations. And then eventually put him in jail over doing a wheelie on a motorcycle.
Oh my God.
Sentenced him to like 2.5 years of prison.
That's an obsession for sure.
Of finally
inhumanizing somebody. Like, Jesus, can we not?
And finally, like, he had this team that got these cops to admit that they were doing dirty shit. And so he was finally granted a retrial for that original 2008 arrest.
What year was he granted the retrial?
Like 2019. Because his parole got extended.
Wow.
Dude, it's a crazy documentary.
I'm hearing about the Britney Spears one recently that's getting traction and some tidbits from that.
I have to watch that. I have to watch that. That's crazy.
I've heard some stuff and I was like, what? Even my best friend was like, so I heard from one person how her dad controlled her, and then I heard from another person how like Justin Timberlake has like something to do with it and like the songs he made about her or something. And I'm like, man, like I haven't heard of her in a long time. Like, why is this documentary coming out? But I guess it's got like some hard hitting information in it.
I think it's nuts that people are trying to like digest everything she puts out. Like she put out like a Scrabble board or something. People are like, let's find the hidden message.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So that's wild, man.
Yeah.
So, I want to move on to the next question. It's normally the third question, but I've decided since this is the 5th episode, like just through working through the kinks in this, that it should be a second question. So the next question featured in this podcast is, what is your media of the week?
My media of the week. Hmm. Probably WandaVision.
Oh yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, like I'm a casual Marvel fan. I do like them. I think they're well written and fun.
It is Marvel.
Uh, it is Marvel, yeah. It's got Scarlet Witch and Vision, and I think it's a very well written show. I watched all of the episodes that are out so far, and then felt like my girlfriend would like it, which she typically doesn't like superhero content. But because of the way the show is written, I think that she would like it. And so we binged the 7 episodes all over again this week, and so I'm finally catching bits that I clearly missed on the first watch through based on like what happened in the latest episode. And yeah, it's great. They just drop so many neat things. Have you watched any of it or like heard about it?
The WandaVision, I haven't watched it, but I've heard it in conversation. Like people like say that they were watching it with their girlfriend, or I'm gonna watch WandaVision, or I just finished it, or just small talk. Like I haven't really heard much about it at all. I think I saw it once online, like advertised or something, but I never watched it. I don't do TV shows very well at all, so
Yeah, I really appreciate the filmography because they're able to really capture uh TV filming styles over the past like 5 decades,
okay.
and the set design follows that as well. So it's super good and creative in that way.
Is it
And
like
then just like the story's
transgress
captivating.
time or something? Is that like a core part of it?
Kinda, yeah. So like you start out and it's like a 50s sitcom, and then it goes to the 60s, the 70s, and it just like touches on all of those tropes from each episode.
What is his
But
power if it's Marvel or something? What's the
well, so Scarlet Witch can do like telekinetic stuff, and then like she shoots red beams. I don't know. They haven't explained it so far of like why this is happening,
hmm.
but it's like they created like this like world inside the world
Is this
where
new to
this is
Marvel, or
happening.
is this something that was also a comic book?
It might have been a comic book. I don't know, but this is like the newest thing Marvel has put out in a while.
Huh. Yeah. So yeah, I don't do shows very well. I've explained this before that my chronology for absorbing entertainment is play video games. If I don't want to play video games, or maybe I'm interested in something, it's YouTube or Twitch. If I'm too tired to physically like produce like energy to like play something that requires my full attention, I'll go YouTube or Twitch. And then so like after that, it'd be like, oh, well, maybe I'll watch a show. And so like it's the fourth tier on things that I want to spend my time doing that pertain to a TV, and this goes below, sailing or what other activities that I have in my life. So it's not very often that I like sit down like at the end of the night and like watch a show. I'd rather like go to bed watching Twitch or scrolling Reddit. So like I just don't do TV shows. I'm so far behind. The most recent Marvel movie I think I've watched was the first Guardians of the Galaxy.
No, that's okay. Everyone has their things. I do really enjoy movie and TV. I think they just do a really good job taking you out of the current world
I
and letting
love
you
it.
have
I
a good
love
escape.
expression, story, all that stuff like that. But I don't put
Yeah,
it like I'll pick up on stuff and like personally pursue movies and like shows that people recommend that are like they're thoroughly impressed with, and I'll give them a shot. And it's not like
yeah,
like 9 times out of 10 I'm like yeah, like this is a banger. Like I'm glad I took my time to do this. I just don't allocate like I don't put it on the first segment of things I want to do and then pursue stuff that's potentially good. Like I wait until like somebody feeds me like WandaVision, for example. Like maybe I'll go check out an episode tonight and then it might be the thing. And then for a week I'll watch all the WandaVisions. You know what I mean?
yeah. And like your point about like video games, I also think that video games do a great job. Probably a better job taking you out of the current world and sticking you into a new one.
You're more
And
engaged
nowadays, like
sometimes.
the story is better than ever. I just like actually hate playing video games. Like I almost never have fun playing video games anymore.
Really?
I did when I was younger, maybe like middle school, but ever since then, I just like have no fun when I play video games.
What are you doing, man?
I don't know. It's just I never finish them. For certain things that I want to know the story, I'll watch like a cutscene movie on YouTube.
Or like a
Than
let's play slash summary of what it
no,
is?
no, no. I don't want to hear anybody talk about it. I just want to watch the cutscenes.
Huh. Man, I would say because you're very right that like there's a lot of games, and I could offer multiple examples of these games that offer a break from reality or to get into a different scenario. And like two really good ones that one you probably had heard of. One's Red Dead Redemption 2. The other one is like BioShock, where they immerse you into the story where you kind of literally you can essentially be watching a movie, except that movie takes you 12 hours to finish in segments, over whatever 12 sit down sessions where you play an hour. But like it can be more engaging and rewarding because like you dictate the story. So I think that's where the appeal of like Fallout and Oblivion come in, because you can choose your path, your play style. You can choose if you're good or evil, and games will cater to like more than one movie ending, if you will.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I pretty much only play games that I did like when I was like 12. So like I bought the Final Fantasy VII remake, and I didn't even care about the gameplay. Like, it was pretty fun. Like, I didn't hate it so much, but like the only reason I wanted to progress was to see how they were going to do the story, because I
You're
knew
very
that it was going to
story
be
driven
different.
or lore based, I guess you could say, kind of like my
Yeah, and
girlfriend.
same with like Kingdom Hearts. Like, I was miserable playing Kingdom Hearts
Which one?
through all of the Pixar Kingdom Hearts 3
Really?
through all of the Pixar worlds. Yeah, like it was kind of fun, but like I don't know, I just like didn't want to do it, and I'm glad that they didn't make it as grindy as the last two, because I probably would have stopped playing.
So you're
I'm glad
trying to
that it
get
was
through it to see the story resolution, not so much the actual challenge or mechanics of the game.
exactly 100%.
Yeah, I mean that's fine. I could definitely say that you would have to know the games that you're getting into and what compels you to play them. And there are a lot of story-driven games, like the ones that hold your hand.
Yeah,
So
I
those would be
bought
what you'd want to play.
one of the new Star Wars games. I can't remember which one, but I love Star Wars. So like I kind of knew what I was getting into. I think it was Fallen Order. Was that
I
it?
think that's the
Maybe.
most recent one.
Yeah. And God, like 2 or 3 worlds in, I'm like, I am just not having
Oh,
fun
so
playing.
the problem with that one is, so that one fell under the category of Souls like, and so this was one of the things that I was going to touch on. So there's different types of gamers. There's the indie casual, there's the story driven like you, and then there's like the hardcore, which people say, which is like the like Call of Duty, Halo 3, like where you're versing other people, where you're into the competition, like you like the grind, the sharpening your skills and like reaching the top of the ladder board and like being good at something. And that's like what I most empathize with or attracted to. But there's also this subgenre of games that are remarkably difficult, either because they were poorly developed or because they were intentionally made to challenge the user. And Souls-like games are essentially that. FromSoft made Dark Souls, which is heralded as like one of the more to most difficult games ever created because of like just the way they set it up. And so it's created this genre of called, it's literally Souls like is what they call it. And so it offers like, I've watched Donkey compare it, and he's like, it's literally like if Dark Souls wanted to be a Star Wars game and then like their own twist on it. So that being said, that like play style doesn't cater to like more casual or story driven people. Like it's mechanically going to be a challenge. So that's probably why you were like, I don't know about this. Like
I
this
don't
is
know,
difficult.
because I didn't really feel like it was that hard. They even have like a story mode though, so like the game is a cakewalk to go through.
Okay. They have a
Uh,
difficulty setting though.
yeah,
That helps a
yeah, and
lot. I probably
I
didn't know that, but that makes a huge difference. Dark Souls has no
it
difficulty. Just either get
it was
fucked
more
nerd
like
or figure it out.
a platformer.
Okay.
Like, it's a lot of like figuring out puzzles, which is kind of fun, but I don't know. Maybe the story was just not captivating enough to keep me going.
Huh.
I think that might have been it. But yeah, I stopped playing it. Like, I'm like, well, I wasted like $40 on this game.
Oof.
Yeah, whatever. I don't buy video games that often, so it's like I'll roll the dice
Yeah,
on
you
this
have
one. I
like a
do like Star
PS3
Wars.
still, right? Like I think you said that
No,
on the.
I have a PS4 now,
Oh, okay.
but I only got a PS3 because I thought that Kingdom Hearts 3 was going to come out on it. And then when they were like, nope, it's going to be PS4, I was like, fuck, now I have to, and I sold my PS3 for like $50 and bought a used PS4
Okay.
that mostly just collects dust under my TV.
It's a Netflix streamer.
No, my TV's a Netflix streamer.
Oh, so it's a dust box.
It's truly just a dust box.
It's a DVD player, and the odd chance that you have a DVD.
Yeah, I do play friends in Madden when they come over once in a while, but that's like it.
Really? Which Madden are you sporting? 17?
No, I think I did by 19 because that was the one that was out when when I bought the PS4.
My sports game of choice on the consoles would have to be they don't make them anymore, but I really enjoyed all of like the Slugfest and the like NBA Streets and stuff, the more arcadey takes on sports.
Oh,
But
they're so much more fun.
yes.
I hated this Madden. I thought it was terrible. The
Um,
franchise mode was bad,
okay.
and it's like I don't know. Madden's
You
awful
got to be a
now.
diehard sports guy to play them. But being that I don't watch a lot of sports, the basketball games are really fun to me, and that's the only one that I like to watch. However, everybody ever that I've ever seen play NHL always say, A, the games are fun to go to and watch. You don't have to be a hockey fan. And B, even the video games are like super fun because of like how fast paced the game like plays opposed to like maybe MLB where it's like really technical and so
Yeah, I also have NHL 19, and it's probably a little bit better than Madden, but they're both kind of just meh. I feel like some of their I feel like they got these exclusive licenses and over the years have just gotten incredibly lazy.
yes, there's a thing about that on the internet. I forget when it started gaining traction, but they've essentially started to publicly petition that they get rid of their monopoly because there's these games throughout the years, like the slugfests and stuff, that like when other people were able to tap into the NBA franchise, they were able to create their own take on the sport, or they were able to challenge like the standard, whereas you can they people have showed footage from like 2019 to 2020 where they've literally copied the touchdown celebrations and like some of the stuff,
Yeah,
and
they
it's
just
like
don't try.
yeah, they don't at all
They
because they
don't
don't
try.
have to. This is the free
Yeah.
market agenda is supposed to make you have to earn your buyer, whereas they're just, oh, if you're going to play a football game, you're buying ours. So
Yeah, it's trash. So I'm probably not going to buy another Madden unless the NFL decides to get rid of the exclusive license.
yeah, I haven't played them in years. I think the last one that I actively was like Xbox One, I think 2018, 2017, 2018. I was playing the Madden, or not Madden, NBA. And that's a good time, but that's also like a couch game. And couch gaming is like slowly gone away. Like it's just so much easier for homeboy to have like a console at his house or something, or I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. So yeah, video game just isn't close to being my medium of choice, I guess.
Yeah, I'm on the other side.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I respect a lot of video games. I think that they are they take almost more work than most movies and TV shows.
Uh, I would actually like to see a comparison. I know some games definitely take years. And I wonder if it's
I mean,
just
just the
because of the
amount of
complexity
coding.
of code. Yeah, like coding, it takes a lot of people to code them.
I think the only movies that compete are the ones that have like a crazy amount of CGI. So like, yeah, like some of those like Avengers movies that are just all CGI, like
No, there's
that might have a
non
bigger team.
CGI movies that can. I mean, I don't know. What are we comparing? I guess like the production time.
Not just production time, just like hours put into creating.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I
Yeah.
don't know a lot of movies that go past like I always remember being surprised that they take longer. We're talking about movies here, not shows, but they take longer. Like they take months to do. And I'm like, that's fair. Like I get it. A lot of, refilming and filming and tweaking, whereas like an MMO or something could take like upwards of 2 to 3 years to make. However, Call of Duty manages to spit it out once every year. But
Yeah, but you got to think about like how big is the team building Call of Duty? Like they have the resources to have like 1,000 coders make this game in a year,
maybe they do.
whereas maybe that MMO has like a team of 150. So
Yeah.
that's why it takes,
That's definitely
you
something I
know,
would have to look into, but I don't honestly know.
yeah, like I would imagine with how much content has to go into video gaming, and maybe it's easier now because there's like a lot of algorithm based and like, you know, uh, what's the new thing? It's like No Man's Sky had world building that was it was just built on an algorithm, right? Like each world was different just because the code spit out a different thing.
Yeah, I
And I
know
guess
only a
that
little
makes
bit
it
about
easier
that
to
game,
code.
but the concept of it being like procedure, I can never pronounce
Yeah,
that
yeah,
word.
that's
Proce-
procedural
yes, but it's
generated. Yeah,
that like taken to the max. Like it's like the 107 like 100 1700,000th digit of pi essentially. Like they took the procedurally generation of Minecraft and were like, hey, let's do that for like 10,000 planets, and then let people just find out what in God's name they put on this planet and who names it first. And I thought that was kind of cool. Like they really, really, really blew it up. But I never got around to playing it because it didn't fall into the category of the like competitive. That's more of like the
yeah,
casual
yeah,
PVE adventure. Like it like caters to that dopamine shot that someone's looking for.
yeah, yeah. So I think like maybe that makes procedural generation makes certain video games easier to make, but overall, just like how much effort has to go into building a video game is incredible, and the market behind it, I respect it tremendously.
Yeah. I guess I don't really know much about shows and like how their timeline is.
At this point, I think we're in the golden age of television. I think TV shows are getting bigger budgets than they ever have, and the production value behind them is growing almost to like movie levels. Like WandaVision is basically going to be a 6 hour movie just spread out over however many episodes they put out.
Huh. I didn't think that they would ever be considered underfunded though. Like there's a lot of good shows that are like older. And I guess there is sort of like a corny like you watch some old stuff. Like maybe let's go real deep. Like sort of like Friends, you know, and it's kind of like corny
Yeah.
sitcom-y, but like that also has like its own taste. Whereas something a little bit more newer, like Lost in 2005, like I don't know that was technically underfunded in production anywhere except for I think maybe they had like I think they were part of the writers strike, which was like one of the reasons
Right,
why they
right.
had like such a chaotic storyline. And I freaking love that show. I've watched it straight to back 3 times. Like I love that
So
show.
I don't think it's necessarily like underfunded. I think it's just like the idea of what TV shows could be has evolved over time.
Word.
I think Lost might have been kind of the first show to do that. And then like Breaking Bad, which I've never watched an episode of Lost or Breaking Bad, but like
Whoa.
I know, yeah, yeah, hot take, right? But no, Breaking Bad was like a whole nother level of television that people didn't think that it could get
The
to.
story
Just
writing was like incredible, and I think Breaking Bad might have been one of the first to like make the progression of a story like mean something more than like because you had such a huge timeline, and like people talk about um like that is more than just this guy who cooks meth. Like it's the progression of a good guy into basically a villain. And when I finally started getting around to watching Breaking Bad, it was like, whoa, like now you're getting on board. I think I started watching it like one season before it was like the final season or something. And like now, like you're a guy that likes TV and stuff, and like you've never watched it. That's mind blowing.
I just don't watch that kind of like TV show. Like it's just that story doesn't appeal to me. But I think what I'm getting at with Breaking Bad is that like before that, there was kind of a stigma about actors doing TV. Like the goal was always to be a movie actor. And
Definitely
then
Hollywood.
now, like, there's such a newfound respect for being on TV, like Game of Thrones and like William
Oh,
Macy being on
it also has its
Shameless.
cons though too, because there's people that become so ingrained in these TV shows, and their reputation spans a 6 year TV show that like they're gridlocked into this concept. Or Game of Thrones. What was the little short blonde haired kids? I
Oh,
don't.
I don't know. That's another show that I've actually
I
never
haven't
watched.
either, but
I think I watched like the first episode and it just
so
wasn't for me.
there's people like this kid, for example. I'm trying to think of the Lannisters. Okay, so the Lannister family. This kid, I only watched the first season, so I know just barely enough to like converse about it, but I don't know how it pedals out. But basically, this kid was like total like born into royalty, stolen throne. He was an asshole. He was like a minor, and he was basically trying to be a king. So like so what I was getting at was this can be, I guess, a pitfall and a success story at the same time, and I thought that was interesting. So the Lannister kid on the Game of Thrones series, and I only watched like the first season and a half, so I know just enough. But essentially, this kid was like a 15 or 16 or a very young kid who was born into royalty, actually stole the throne and was like not fit for ruling. Like he was kind of like I don't know, he's like really evil, and I don't know all the heinous things that he did throughout the show, but I remember people talking about like how bad he was, like how he like had no mercy on the one guy in the first season, whatever. A Game of Thrones buff will be like, yeah, that dude is a total piece of shit. Essentially, is like what I'm just telling you. Is I think this the kid as a character had to be a total piece of shit, and it was so bad that I think it like embodied him as a person, and so he like just can't get nail any other role because like they unintentionally like resent this person for the character they portrayed, and it like it's kind of childish, but like I've just seen that happen in certain
Oh yeah,
shows.
people get typecast, but people get typecasted in movies too.
Yes.
Like, have you ever seen Machete not play Machete?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, he's
You
just good.
know,
Or
like,
Arnold or The Rock not play like a
yeah.
smoldering muscular man. They've tried. Like Vin Diesel did that one movie where he was like a superhero babysitter or something, and it was like, I mean, it was a good movie, but it was like, why is this like muscle bound like Stonewall guy like interacting with this small girl, and it was like I get it,
Yeah,
typecast.
people get typecasted, but no, I think my biggest issue is with TV is like probably the producers and networks that want to bleed a show dry. Like, I think that TV shows would be better with a planned ending rather than like a open ended, like, all right, keep going until you don't get enough viewers that we're going to cancel you. I think Americans just need to be more open
Okay,
to
I get that.
shows coming to a natural ending.
Like The Office, where they just kind of like evolved as they went, and The Office did really good. And I think it got to like a point, and I never watched like the whole thing front to back, but my girlfriend loves the show. But there's a point where like Michael Scott was like, yeah, I mean, I don't remember why. Someone probably knows that's an Office fan, but he just didn't participate in the show anymore. And a lot of people think that like completely like changed the dynamic, and like it was like maybe it
Yeah,
outlived
yeah.
its
I love
time.
The Office. I've watched The Office front to back probably 20 times
Okay.
plus.
Do you know why
Uh,
Michael Scott tapped out?
I think they just didn't want to pay him. His contract was over. He's probably going to ask for a lot more money, and just
Mm-hmm.
they want to go in a different direction. But it's like you could have just like wrote the show to a natural ending. Like that would have been it.
Instead of him just, oh, this is your last day recording, and then yeah, I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
remember how he
they
exited.
could have just well, he moved to Denver. Like that's the show, and it's like you could have just ended the show there, and it would have been
Yeah,
fine.
but they were like, nah,
It,
that money though.
Exactly. So the UK, while I don't really like their shows that much, they know how to fucking end a show. They're like, okay, we've told the story we want to tell. That's it. 2 seasons, 3 seasons.
Hmm.
It's just about like properly ending a
I
show.
implore you to go watch Breaking Bad, because I think it's literally the opposite of what you're characterizing, where they actually had a progression that they wanted to achieve, like a story they wanted to tell, and then they pulled it off in a perfect 5 season like
Oh, I know.
amount.
It doesn't happen on every show.
Now, why is it
And,
that you
and
don't
that's
watch
why.
it? It doesn't appeal to your type of content?
Yeah, I really don't watch shows like that. Like I mostly just stick to like
What
comedies and
is
like
show
something
like
like pretty
that? Like
lighthearted.
what are you characterizing it as?
So all right, I'm gonna put a group of shows together that I've never watched. Dexter,
Okay.
Breaking Bad,
Okay.
Sons of Anarchy, uh, NCIS.
Violent drama.
It doesn't even necessarily have to be violent. It's just like I pretty much just stick to comedy, like strictly comedies,
That's cool.
or maybe some like sci-fi kind of thing.
Yeah, I
You
haven't
know,
watched
like
any of those except for Breaking Bad. My mom and my girlfriend both have watched Dexter, and I've also like caught glimpses of it by like they're watching it, and I walk in the room, talk to them, hang out, or my girlfriend's watching it while I'm on the computer and I'm listening to it. Like I know like a big gist of a lot of those, even Sons of Anarchy, but I haven't personally watched them because I don't know. I guess I watched
yeah,
Breaking Bad at a time where some of these shows I
they
watched when
could
they're in between the cracks of like video gaming and stuff.
they could be great shows, and like I'm sure they are. They wouldn't be as well liked as they are without being
Of
great.
course.
But if it's not going to appeal to me, it's not going to appeal to me. And like
That's fair.
they don't need my approval.
What? Excuse me, and yawn. What shows other than The Office? Like, what kind of comedy genre actually hits your radar?
It's Always Sunny is probably my favorite show of all
I've
time.
heard good things.
Oh yeah, it's so fucking funny. It's like incredibly good.
How I Met Your Mother is
Um,
another big one my mom likes, or my mom,
so
my
I
girlfriend. I'm everybody in my family. Apparently, I can't even say who it is. She likes that.
that is that is one style of comedy show that I actually do not like. I hate laugh track
And
comedies.
it's a lot of like when I listen to it, I'm like, man, Tristan, there's so many sex jokes and references in this. And she's
Oh,
like, yeah, that's
I
why
don't
it's
care about
funny.
that. I don't care about that. Like that could be
You don't like
hilarious, but
laugh
like
track though?
any oh dude, I hate it. And I hate the camera angles of those kind of shows. Like it just bothers me.
Yeah, it's that old friend style that I mentioned where they have the added
Yeah.
laugh track, and I think they're like trying to trick your brain into, oh, that was a funny part, so you should laugh, and it's like sometimes it hurts.
But I will say How I Met Your Mother is the only one that I've watched all the way through. It's okay. It's fine. The last season was very bad.
Okay,
So, uh, another show that I think kicked off like my style of comedy show that I really like is Scrubs.
okay,
I do really enjoy Scrubs. They kind of broke that mold of like laugh track comedy that was so popular and did their own thing. So I think Scrubs is kind of a very unique show.
okay. Yeah, I don't have much to think about that one, other than that one dance that they put in Fortnite that they stole from Scrubs.
Oh yeah, no, Scrubs is a good show. Just very well written too. That's another
Oh,
one though that they bled dry.
wait. So did you watch all of Scrubs?
Yeah,
So I could kind of mend two categories here and ask you about it because I've never been able to do this. So there is a song that the Butthole Surfers. Do you know them?
yeah,
Okay,
they're like an old surf rock punk band.
so they made a song that like was in Scrubs, and it was like this song that I like used to love, and I can't even remember what it is. But man, I don't know. Does that ring a bell at all?
No, but Scrubs is known for having very good soundtrack. Like they've put a lot of bands. Like they played Fountains of Wayne before. What was it? Stacy's mom came out.
Really?
Yeah, they played the song "Hey Julie," which is a fucking banger. Highly recommend that song.
I don't know much
They've also
about Fountains
played.
of Wayne, but that carry on.
They played like the Fray. They played like wasn't Dashboard. They played fuck, what's the band? People fucking love this band too. They play "I'll Follow You Into the Dark." What the fuck is that song? I'm gonna look it up now.
But the Scrubs just played a lot of that genre of music before like they were mainstream.
Yeah, pretty much.
Huh.
Oh, their album is Transatlanticism.
I'm trying to think what the song is, and I'm scrolling their discography right now, and I can't remember which one it is.
Death Cab for Cutie.
Okay.
That's the band I was thinking of. Yeah, they played Death Cab. Yeah, Scrubs is known for playing like newer music.
It's trying to even think of the lyrics, and I can't. I can think of the instrumental like as it kicks off.
Oh, they also played this metal band. What was it? Uh,
They got a lot of crazy like butthole
Devil
surfers.
Driver. That's what he played.
Butthole surfers have an interesting discography. Like all the songs that I used to listen to them. Like I saw an X-ray of a girl passing gas. Like that's a like like all they do is just write off the wall stuff. At least in my experience.
Yeah, there's a few of those bands. Trying to think of another one that does just like weird shit.
Locust
Like drawing
abortion.
blanks on all these bands. I haven't listened to
Well, there's probably so many
music
that you
in
just
so
can't
long.
even like pull them out of the filing cabinet because memory is
Yeah, I saw them
interesting,
at
man.
Riot
It's fickle.
Fest. Fiddlar.
Fid
Fiddlar puts out some weird shit.
Fiddlar sounds like a band that puts out some weird stuff.
And Ween too. You should listen to Ween.
Ween and Fiddlar. Oh my gosh, my
Yeah.
music consumption has. Oh man, what's the one that I just thought of was this Sydney and Garfunkel or whatever.
Simon and
So,
Garfunkel?
Garfunkel and Oates, maybe.
Hall and
No,
Oates?
no, 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 no. But they do like okay, no, no, no. It's Garfunkel and Oates. It's like they just do like really dirty songs, kind of like uh, what's the song that made the Bad Touch? Oh, it's gonna kill me.
Are they doing
No,
parodies?
no, no. Bloodhound. They're like Bloodhound Gang, where they make like inappropriate songs that
Oh,
are super
okay.
funny.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
What speaking of music, what is your favorite record this year or last year?
Last year, man. I used to be very appreciative of full bodies of work that like people put out, like a full album, and I've gotten away from that in recent times because I listen maybe like I spread myself across like too much that I don't like you seem like you're very alt rock to like punk rock, so it's like very easy for you to dial in on what's the best cake, for example, whereas I'm eating like so many different like types of food that I just like, man, I don't know. But I mean, I could maybe take a shot in the dark and say that I really enjoyed seeing uh Mac Miller's post-mortem release of Circles was really cool. I think that I'd have to circle my liked songs here real quick and find some of the stuff that I had listened to last year. Oh, I do have actually. Do you listen on Spotify?
I use Apple Music. I'm that guy.
No, that's fine. I mean, they all pretty much accomplish the same thing, but Spotify
Yeah.
always does a year in review, and so I can find out like what my most played and stuff are, and that's really cool. Does Apple Music like use any type of system like that?
They they do have a similar one, but that's actually one thing I like about Spotify more is that they're way more open about their data than Apple Music is, and they display it in such cool ways. But I used Apple Music right when they started, and I'm just like too lazy to switch.
Okay, so to answer your question, I can at least tell you several interesting things. So my top artists, and mind you, I don't even really like this, but I'm still going to reveal it to you because I haven't listened to music as much as I like used to. It's more full of like podcasts and like specific YouTube content. But the top artists that come up are Mac Miller, Eminem, Young Gravy, Post Malone, and Lo-Fi Hip Hop, which is like my girlfriend's responsible for that. So top decade was the 2000s. Top songs, there's a Mac Miller song, an Eminem song. This is an indie pop song. I won't bother mentioning it. Circles by Post Malone and Good News by Mac Miller. So there's two songs on there from the Circles album that I had aforementioned. So it even says the top song, Hand Me Down, and the top album was Circles. So I guess there's my answer. I don't feel completely happy with it because I wasn't very like explorative in music last year, but that's my answer.
My music taste has just like slowly grown. Like, yeah, there was a period of time where I pretty much like only listened to like pop punk and punk music in general, like alt rock. But like last or like 2019, my favorite record was a rap record by Denzel Curry,
I haven't heard of him.
and then he's probably one of the best in the
I'm
game
sure
right
he's
now.
fire.
And then this year, my top three actually had no rock records. So
Hmm,
uh,
interesting.
it was the first one was St. Cloud by Waxahachie, which is basically like alt country. And then Run the Jewels, RTJ4,
Okay, I've heard
another
that
rap record.
before.
And then Juice World's uh, record,
Yeah. So
posthumous record. Yeah.
my album kind of surpasses like what my like actual musical interests I guess have been in the last year, and I have to say that
White rappers.
well it's funny because when I listen to the when I like pick out like what my favorite hip hop is, so I'm gonna start first by saying that I don't know, I feel like this is like the oh I have a black friend thing, but like one of my favorite hip hop inspirations of all time is Biggie. Like when I self discovered Biggie, like I was like I really
Yeah.
love his flow, and like he's just really good. You know, I mean, I appreciate Tupac. I used to listen to a lot of Nas. Also, all the G Funk artists, like the top, like Snoop Dogg, E40, all those. Like I love those guys. But I digress. Like nowadays, the hip hop that I listen to is it like literally caters to like white hip hop, and I don't know like why that is. Maybe because I can't relate to some of the more uh like stuff that like the bars that some of these African American rappers put in. Like I just can't relate to that culture. Like I'm a white dude who lives in a swing state that like is I just can't, like I don't know. I'd like to sympathize with it, and a lot of the stuff is really hard. But I think there's something attractive to me, like that attracts me to like Mac Miller, where I can get on with his bars and like his later years, his like mental problems. I really love Logic's really good. I don't know if you want to consider him that. And then I like the goofy stuff, like the Young Gravy and the uh, Lil Dicky. Like I love those two. Like they're just so funny. They're the comedy, if you will, of like the TV show.
I actually really liked Dave. I think it
Dave's
was a very
awesome.
good show.
So
Yeah, yeah. No, I it surprised me because like I have laughed at like Lil Dicky's songs before,
and
but
he's
like
good too. He's not just a memer.
yeah,
Like he actually certifiably can freestyle and has bars.
but I do think he is a better show writer than he is a
He rates a
rapper.
show.
And that's not saying he's a bad
What shows
rapper.
he write?
His own show, Dave.
It's called Dave. How do I not know about this?
Oh, bro, you got to watch it. It's on Hulu.
Oh my gosh, I'll have to go check that
Oh,
out.
it's so
I
good. It's
I
so
really,
good.
yeah, really enjoy him. I like Eminem. I just seem to find these like I like Wax, or some people might know in the old days Wax and Herbal Tea. But yeah, I don't know. But what I really wanted to say is outside of hip hop, my music choice has been actually more. Whereas I used to pick, now I kind of like digest groupings. So maybe genres, so to speak, and a couple of those are bedroom pop, um, Mac DeMarco, soft rock, electro swing, and electro wave. I'm all over the place. Oh, and I've been getting into instrumental jazz lately. I'm like spread and oh, Prince. That's like six. That's like my.
You should listen to Turnover.
What is turnover?
Turnover was like a pop punk band that turned into like a sort of alt jazz synth wave kind of band, and they're awesome.
Now, you base that off of what, the jazz thing slash the electro punk or electro swing?
Yeah, yeah, kind of, and like the like bedroom pop, just like kind of chill, soft rock music.
Okay, yeah, because I like soft rock, like old like the Cars. I don't know if that like this that comes up in the playlist. The Cars, maybe some Daryl Hall and John Oates, a bunch of stuff.
Do you like the Goo Goo Dolls though?
Yes, I think it's Dolls.
I love the Goo Goo Dolls. Johnny Rezick grew up in the same neighborhood as me.
Oh yeah, really? And that's in
Yeah, they're from
Buffalo.
Buffalo.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Interesting. Um,
Oh yeah.
all right. Well, so we're gonna go to the meat and potatoes question of the playlist. Playlist, the podcast. So I am infatuated with the concept that life doesn't go fast. The chapters do. And so we all go through life in chapters varying in different severities and different lengths. And that being said, what chapter would you find yourself in?
I think I'm closing a chapter actually and starting a new one with my move. I've been living with my partner now for, a few months, but we still have separate apartments.
Mm-hmm.
And so like we're actually moving in together and like really trying to establish something. So it's like uh this is like the end of, like single me, having my own apartment, like really just like building something with somebody, hopefully for the long haul.
Always, we generally, I mean, most people are optimistic when they engage in those kind of activities in a relationship. I mean, there are some that are more, I know firsthand somebody that kind of, for lack of better words, I guess just takes advantage of chubby women that like he just kind of like lives with them and like kind of like goes from girl to girl and but yeah, no, I mean, hopefully for the better. You don't see those cases
Yeah,
very
yeah.
often. That's a very toxic, like just takes advantage and lives with girls and moves in with them and then, keeps cycling through relationships. But he's his own case.
Right. And this past like year and a half has just been, yeah, like you said, incredibly fast chapters. Like I went from, running a scooter warehouse in Nashville to moving to Chicago for a new job and then losing that job 6 months later because of COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and then like being on unemployment, starting a new relationship, and then like having a temp job at a university, like
Yeah, there's a lot of
quarantining.
chapters, man, and they're fast
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, like a fully new company that I never knew anybody at. So like this is the first time I've gotten like a permanent job on my own that's like well paying and like has good benefits and like has opportunities for growth that I didn't get from a favor from somebody else. So it feels good to like do that with my own merits for once.
So the chapter you feel like you're ending, and it's cool because I like that answer because most people are in a chapter or they don't think they're starting a new one. They're still currently doing something and they're not, seeing a chapter close anytime soon, or maybe it's just, not that soon, but you're like, all right, well, this chapter is maybe the more bachelor kind of whatever. I don't know. How would you label that?
Yeah, like that kind of just like being a loner kind of lifestyle is just like fully coming to an end at this point.
Okay, because you're looking more long term and you're moving in with somebody. Would this be the first time that you've moved in with a significant other, or
No, actually, the first time I ever moved out was with my first girlfriend when I was 18, and it was a fucking train wreck.
really? Like where you both were like, "Hey, let's move
Yeah,
out of our parents' house and like get a place."
yeah, and it was an incredibly toxic relationship, just like top top to bottom, just like was not going to work
Now,
ever.
did that show
Probably
up
won't get into
because
too much
of?
detail about it. Just like
Did that come up because of
no,
moving
no,
in,
just
or you're just like, "Oh, why did I do this?"
no, like us moving in is a symptom of how fucking like toxic and stupid that relationship was.
Well, I mean, hey, I mean, yeah,
I mean,
my
that's
my
we were very young, so you know
my first
it happens.
move in, I guess, or like away from home was with the girl I'm currently with, and think I was I think I was 20 or 21. So it would have been like 5 years ago. Wait, I'm 20.
That's a
I'm
pretty good age
25.
to move out. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was right at 18, and like I've gone through so many apartments with roommates and like moving back with my mom, just like oh dude, I've moved way too much over the years.
My mom or dad would never like, they would never like, they would never turn me away. Like my dad literally, like my dad acts like a mom more than like a dad sometimes. And then my mom will sometimes act like a dad more so, but they both like, my dad literally has the room. I won't go too into detail, but we had a housing issue, and more so, my mom, somebody who she was dating, I was just tired of like what they were going through, and I was like, I'm getting away from this, and I moved back in with my dad because he had an empty room, and that was fine. I was with him for a long time, and then I moved into this apartment, but like that room is still empty. He literally has like a gun safe and like a couple small things in the corner, but it's basically empty. So like I could move in at any time, and he would like be perfectly okay with that. And my mom would give me her couch in a heartbeat too. Not that I want to. Like I think I have options that I would like explore before I ever did that. But like it also kind of is like if I lost my job or like went down some road, like I could just like move in with my dad or my mom and then be like, sure. Like they don't like you're too old for that. They would be like all for it.
Yeah, my parents are the same way. They would never ever turn me away. She's like, we'll always find a room for you. Like it's not an
It helps
issue.
having a good
But yeah,
relationship with them.
I've had to just like go back and forth so much. Like it sucks. I could probably like let's see. I lived in Nashville for 3 years and lived in three different apartments.
That ain't that
This is now
bad.
going to
That's
be
one a
this is
year.
now going to be yeah, this is gonna be my second apartment in Chicago already. And then in Buffalo, since I moved out, I probably lived in like 10 different places.
Yeah.
Just like absurd
Buffalo's kind
amount
of
of
on the
times
high
I've moved.
side. I've lived in five or six maybe over my 18 year. I think I
Yeah, and like in a 7 year span, I probably lived in like yeah, like 10 different addresses.
wow.
I remember one time I came home from tour and all of my roommates moved out.
Really? Like they just straight ghosted you?
Yeah, dude, they were just like gone. I came back to an empty apartment except for my shit. So I had like
And
a day to move all my stuff
what was
out.
the explanation for that?
They were just like, yeah, we didn't want to do it anymore.
And they didn't like, bother telling you before you got back? This is probably pre cell phone or what?
No, it was not pre cell phone. This was
They
like
just
2004
straight
or
ghosted you. Oh
2014.
my god.
Yeah, dude.
Are you still friends
Yeah,
with those
dude. It was
guys? Like,
fucked.
what's that all about?
Yeah. No, one of them I'm not. The other guys, like, we're cordial now after a couple of years.
Huh. That's weird. You come back and it's just empty. Like,
Yeah, dude, I was
whoa.
pissed. We had such a. It was so cheap too. It was a 4 bedroom apartment for $900,
Jeez.
and the landlady was cool. She lived upstairs. She like let us do shows in the basement and stuff. And it's like,
Really?
man, y'all fucking suck. Yeah,
Wow, that's a
and
pretty
I
cool
couldn't
spot.
afford like that place by myself. Nowadays, I'd jump on that. Oh my god, what a deal! We were in a great neighborhood.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely have one or two of those. One or two of those like that. I was like, wow, like at the time, like I couldn't work out because of X, but like now I'd be like, man, I'd love to have that. Especially the place that I moved
Yeah,
out of to go back to my dad's. And like I kind of needed to do what I did because um I was partially like sick of the like situation that they were in, and I was kind of like sending a message like, all right, like I'm getting away from this. You need to stop. Like you're not getting any better, sort of speak. And so, but like now that I look back on it, like that house was kind of older, but like I had a room that connected to the attic, which was a semi-finished attic, and so it was like a man cave essentially. And so that was like where I slept and where I stayed, and it was like my own exclusion from the world. And then it had a garage like with everything in it that I would use, and like the location was like right in the middle of the city, not really like in the city, but like just outside the city. But you know, a lot of Erie is like west and east, so like there's
yeah.
a lot more progressive like restaurants and like stuff like west of the peninsula or in that area. I'm sure you've been to Presque Isle at least once or twice, right?
I've actually no, I've never been there.
Okay.
Erie's a place that I've always wound up driving through.
Okay, so but it's like there's more over there, whereas there's some stuff on the east side, but you don't want to be like far away from the east side. So like it was like right in the middle of everything. I mean, Erie's really cool in which you can get anywhere in like 20 minutes, but like sometimes you
Yeah,
still get kind of lazy and want to be in the middle so that like things aren't as far away. And that's like what that
it
house
is the
was.
Rust Belt shit I like.
What
Like
Rust Belt? That's a Rust Belt
like
symptom, you think?
yeah, yeah, that's Rust Belt shit for sure.
Love
Like
it.
any place that has had constant growth for like the past 50 years has dog shit traffic. Buffalo is a 20-minute city.
It
You
is.
can get
I've
anywhere.
been there. I haven't actually been through a lot of Buffalo. The most I've done in Buffalo is go to Niagara Falls, if you will, or the one mall that has the Dave and Buster's and
Oh, the Walden Galleria.
yeah, the Texas de
Yeah,
Brazil, Cheesecake Factory, and Dave and Buster, like all in,
yeah.
yeah, that's like the
The
most Buffalo.
Canadian Mall.
Is it really?
Yeah, dude. All the rich Canadians come down there and
It's
shop.
something to do with taxes or something?
Yeah, like things are just cheaper in the US, and like back in the day the Canadian dollar was par with the American dollar.
Okay.
So like all of the Canadians would come to the US to shop for lower taxes and lower costs. But then they would leave all the boxes and shit in the parking lot cuz they're assholes to avoid the duty going back to
The
Canada.
duty. What's the duty?
A duty is when you buy something in another country, you have to pay the sales tax when you come back.
Huh. But if it's out of
And
box, you
so
can't confirm that it was.
exactly. So they rip off all the tags and like throw away the boxes and
So they
stuff.
actually check that at the
And
border or whatever you'd call customs. Like they'd be like, "Oh, what are you doing? Doing some
yeah,
shopping?" They'd be like, "Oh, okay. Well, we got to survey your purchases." Like they actually would do that.
well they ask you like, did you buy anything? And I think you have a limit. Like I think you can spend up to $300 per day duty free.
Huh.
So sometimes they'll make a weekend out of it so they can buy more stuff. It's like $300 per person per day.
Okay, so a family can rack up 1,200 a day. I mean, that's pretty hard unless you're buying like big tech items. So I'm picturing like imagine somebody buying a TV and then like they just rip the
Well,
box out, throw it
we
in the back of the truck, and it's like
in August when it's back to school time, you got to think like you're probably buying 4 or 5 outfits for all of the kids, and like that easily adds up.
Yeah, I get
Plus like
that.
sneakers and like backpacks
Man,
and
I
like,
didn't think
yeah,
anything about
probably
that
like new
back in the
computers.
day, the whole back to school thing, but now I'm like, geez, I would hate to have kids and back to school's coming because that was always like a thing. I don't know if that's a nationwide thing, but like getting
It's
geared up
definitely,
for
yeah.
school, like that consumerism bone of like, getting some outfits and getting fresh cool school supplies, like that's a lot of money and it's strongly advertised because of it. But like, man, if I had
If
three
I do have
kids,
kids, I'm gonna try to avoid the whole fast fashion thing.
yeah, just,
Like I think it's terrible. It's bad for the environment. Like it's bad for your wallet.
yeah,
Just
buy a
like
couple
buy a
outfits over the
few things
summer.
that last forever. No, just outfits that last forever.
Yeah.
And just like that's what you're dealing with until you grow out of it.
Fast
Like,
fashion is a thing, though. Don't they like throw stuff
oh, it's
away after
awful.
like a month because they
Yeah, dude. Like H&M is like the worst place you could ever shop.
yeah. I'm not big
Sure,
into
they have some
fashion, but
cool
I've
stuff, but
heard
yeah.
that.
Yeah, dude. People just like throw away shit real fast, and it's not built to last either. So like, you're just churning through clothes.
Huh. I wonder if it's the exploitation of the novelty in the human brain.
Yeah, pretty much. Just like people want to have the nicest, newest stuff, and like, yeah, there. That's why I think like that is one thing that hipsters have done that's like really cool is like make people aware of like thrift shops and like how valuable it is and better for the environment to thrift for clothes.
Is that why hipsters do that? Because they want to hold that like free spirit, like earth friendly. Also, just because there's a lot of good clothes that you can get from thrift shops. You can get some cool picks too.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff that actually
Yeah,
has
and
standed the test of time.
yep, exactly. So I think that's one of the most valuable things that like the whole like hipster trend has brought to the modern world.
I never considered that. I think hip hop culture does that too. I think there's a some of hip hop is like doing something that stands out. So like you can find some interesting taste at a thrift shop. I'm talking about like super wealthy hip hop. That's a completely different genre. That's like Gucci and stuff. But like I've seen a lot of like
Oh, dude, my I have friends that make livings right now based off of what they're able to flip from going thrifting.
really like on what's that
Yeah,
website that you resell clothing?
Depop,
Um,
Depop.
Not the one that I'm thinking of, but I'm sure it's the same thing. There's another one. I've bought like
Yeah,
two.
Depop's like the big
Is
one.
it okay? And
Yeah,
that's
DEPOP.
the online used like the eBay of clothes essentially.
Pretty much, yeah. So my buddy is like uh, he's almost a journeyman uh, stagehand union member. So like his profession was like working the spotlight at Bulls and Blackhawks games and like working concerts and things like that.
Okay.
With the pandemic, he has been out of work for like a year now and probably will for the next year. So he's turned to like flipping clothes that he finds for huge profits. Like he finds like old 80s band shirts and he's able to sell them for like 60, 70 a pop and he buys them for like $5 or less.
Huh. I mean, I get it. Or
He'll
if you find something like kind of edgy, like maybe like a bleached top denim jacket that like actually looks fine, and then like it's a Levi. Oh, well, that's a $40 pick.
yeah, he's great at it. He's made some pretty good money just from that. Plus like the unemployment that he's on. But he was making six figures in the union, just like being a stagehand. I mean, he's working like crazy hours, but
Huh. I mean, I'm
man,
surprised, but I'm
he's
also
doing
not
really well for
surprised.
himself. Yeah, dude, some of those contracts are really good. That's why unions are good,
Oh, I meant the
Casey.
Depop thing, not the union.
Oh
I
yeah.
know.
Oh, I have no idea what his total is, but he's like, I've been able to supplement like
Yeah.
my unemployment plus this to like make pretty much what I was making.
Yeah, I've had people approach me or communicate with me on any of the secondhand apps that I've used over the years, Let Go, Craigslist, all that stuff. And I've had some of those people like, comment about like, hey, if you could do like this, then I could do it because then I can turn a profit. Like I've actually had people openly be like, yeah, like I'm trying to like eBay or whatever they're doing, like they know that there's a fair trade for it. And I know that it's bigger. Like you could almost say that's an e-commerce type route, or Depop is technically e-commerce too, but I'm aware of like tech being recycled, but I actually hadn't thought about people making legit money reselling clothing from thrift shops.
Oh yeah, dude. There's like consignment stores that have been doing it for a long time, but um No, he does really well for himself. Like the fact that like I've gone with him just to pick. I don't have the eye for it, dude. I never find anything that's worth shit. But like he'll pick up anything. Like he's found golf clubs that he could buy for $1 that he could sell for like 150.
Really? Huh.
So yeah, it's not even just clothes, but it's mostly
So I
clothes.
know they
Uh,
make
eh,
a gadget. This is actually old tech where you can go to like garage sales and find anything that still has a barcode, like it's in a box or a book, and you can scan it and you can actually find what fair value of it on eBay. And that's been around for a long time. People go and do that. So I'm wondering if maybe he has a similar system on some of this stuff, or he just really has a good brain and like knows, oh, that's a Titleist and they're selling it for $5. Like that's
yeah,
crazy.
so I think he basically just Googles certain things, like anything that's not clothes. He Googles the value of it from eBay, like on what the most recently sold was, and then he can like sell it that way. But with clothes, yeah, all he does is like we'll go to the Goodwill bins, so it's not even like a Goodwill store. It's just like pre-sorted bins where you could just go through and maybe find something, and that's where he really makes his money. He'll just dig through these bins of shit
Hmm.
and somehow find like four shirts that he can flip for $200 total.
Yeah, this one that I just found on Depop, clicking the shop button, it says it's a 1992 Guns N' Roses Metallica tour shirt, and I'm like, wow, like that actually is like I get that. It's $150. I mean, like that's a relic,
Yep.
you know. Guns N' Roses arguably doesn't, like they've played recently, and I know because I've seen one, but like they're not an actively touring band, let alone the circumstance with how old Metallica is to catch them both. Like that'll never happen. Like that's a relic. That's a trophy.
Yeah, dude. And those shirts go for a lot. Like yeah, old Metallica shirts go really well. Iron Maiden, like Slayer shirts, like that shit sells so well. And I never find them. I don't have the eye for other shirts too. Like he'll find random like Harley Davidson shirts or whatever, and he's able to sell them. Wrestling shirts do super well.
It
If you
makes
can find
sense.
any like
Anything that's
yeah, if you can find
branded,
any like 80s or 90s wrestling shirts,
really.
God, look at this. Yeah, you can make a
Well,
lot of
that
money.
fan base really likes to splurge on merch. Like it's just a show thing.
It's also just become like a streetwear thing too. Like 90s is cool. The fucking wrestling was coolest in the 90s.
Yes, yes. Speaking of which, have you seen, or I should, I guess, encourage you to go check it out. Since are you not a Joe Rogan listener?
No, I'm not.
So that's fine. But if you have any type of interest in wrestling, I think is it John Calloway, Undertaker? He was on recently, and that was
Oh, I would watch it. Undertaker's my favorite wrestler, and I like a lot of his takes.
yeah. He is a sound man, and he talks about his experience getting into the industry, his injuries, all the fun stories in between, and
He was on the Hot Ones.
yeah, I watched that while I was building a computer, so I didn't get to like see in detail, but I know that he was. Hot Ones is awesome. I need to
Yeah, I love
go
the Hot
check out some
Ones.
more Hot Ones because I'm super behind.
Yeah, it's great. The Eric Andre one is probably the best one.
I think my favorite was the Shia LaBeouf one because like he like once again impressed me and and something that wasn't a movie. Like I'm a huge Shia LaBeouf fan. My favorite animated movie is
Oh
Surfs Up.
man, he's in the middle of like getting canceled right now.
Really, what do you do? I'm not up to speed.
A lot of his ex-girlfriends are coming out about like mental and physical abuse from Shia LaBeouf.
Wow, dude, I love his acting. I love
Yeah.
I love his inspiration. And then when he came on First We Feast, he was like Stonewall the whole time. While most people like you get a reaction out of it or like a quiver, and he was like so able to like hold his composure that I was like, dude, you're a robot. But I can't sign on for the physical and mental abuse. Hopefully, it's not like Me Too or anything of that sort. Like it isn't some type of campaign of. But if it's more than one girl, like you can't
It's
fabricate
it's
that.
more than one. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Huh, maybe he's hiding some demons from the public and then he just takes it out on these girls.
I think he definitely is. He to me he does give off those vibes, and I've liked a lot of Shia LaBeouf movies. I think he's an interesting person, but he is someone that I can fully visualize being kind of a piece of shit to women.
He's, yeah, he kind of, maybe I could get that because like he always had this weird, like, edgy, super like I don't know, like there's definitely like it's not as surprising. Whereas like you could see somebody who's more like soft, like uh fuck, what's his name? World War Z. What's the main blonde haired actor's name?
Oh, Brad
Brad,
Brad
yeah, like
Pitt.
Brad Pitt. You're like, man, it seems like everybody loves Brad Pitt. Like, you probably kiss his neighbor's kid, you know. Whereas like Shia LaBeouf, you're like, I don't know a whole lot. He seems kind of edgy. Maybe that's the thing. You know, like those people that just give off this clean persona.
Yeah, I feel like Shia LaBeouf is like the broken, starving artist kind of guy, where like
Oh, like Donald Glover,
got a
maybe.
lot of demons. I don't know. I don't feel those vibes from Donald Glover.
Yeah, I don't know anything outside his body. A lot of people get like,
I'm thinking of, you know, who I also think could be someone who would have a situation like Shia LaBeouf is like Joaquin Phoenix.
I don't know, man. I mean, sure. I have a
He was the
hard.
joke. He was the
Yeah. I
Joker.
just watched that movie like a few months ago, and I even talked about it on I talked about it on page one of this podcast with Veffy, and he is a person who struggles with chronic PTSD, like from some emotional like so like he understands mental disorders, and he talked about like avoiding it and like understanding like he couldn't sympathize with it or watch it because it would like almost like open the floodgates that like it's okay to respond. You'd have to just go like watch it and see how he talks
Yeah.
about it. But essentially what I was trying to say was it's hard for me to really say this because there's the public persona of these people, and then there's the other side, which is like Twitter and interviews, where you can actually kind of learn who the person is. And I don't publicly, or not publicly, I don't personally like pursue people's like I don't get starstruck. There's like only maybe two people that like fall under the category of like, man, I'd like to know more than just their acting career. And so I can't. I feel wrong when I say like, oh, Joaquin Phoenix, because I are yeah, because I only seen a few features that he's in and know nothing else. Like not an article written about him, not an interview. Like I can't do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know anything either besides his movies, and like he just gives off those kind of like vibes to me that like maybe he does have a lot of demons because he's so secretive about his life. But you know, I don't know. I shouldn't say that because like he might be the total opposite, and I sound like a piece of shit right now. But like I don't know. That's just what I'm saying. Those like
Now,
I got the same vibes from like you know Shia LaBeouf that I do about any of those actors that like I feel like they might have some demons buried away that could
everybody's got demons.
be harmful to other
Do
people.
you know about the Shia LaBeouf uh, flag live stream?
Oh, dude, that was crazy.
Yeah, I didn't get to see it in real time, but I got to like watch the breakdown of how it happened. So for the people that do not know what we're talking about, do you want to try and break it down for the Republic?
Yeah, basically, I think Shia hung. What kind of flag was it?
So I think it was for the when Trump was running, I think, and it was they will not separate us or something like that.
Yeah,
It was his
and
political boycott essentially against this guy and what he stood for, or, whatever.
and yeah, he just live streamed the flag being up, and like people on 4chan were able to find out exactly where it is. It was only in like the middle of a field
Like
somewhere, so like
Arkansas or something.
nobody could have like realistically expected for anybody to be able to find it, but like based on like the sun's position and like the weather of the day and like the type of flora that was around, like they were able to find it and get it down after what, like maybe a week or 2 days or
Yeah, so
something. Like,
they took the sun. They found like a bird, and they were like, "Oh, okay. Well, this looks like they like this League of Degenerates on 4chan was like, oh, okay. Well, that's a eastern seagull or something. Whatever. They're like, oh, and this is located in these regions. Okay, so we can tighten the there's a plane that went over this time and this time. Look at flight logs to see like all this public information, and within like a week, yeah, they were able to track down where it was, triangulate it, and then somebody in the area, all anonymously, they're like, oh, well, I'm in that area, I'll go look, and they find it. And I think what they do, pull it down and put up a Pepe flag. I forget what the response was.
yeah, I know for sure they pulled it down. I don't know if they put anything up in its place, but incredible moment of solidarity by the people that disagreed with his
That's
message.
hilarious. So yeah, in middle of nowhere. And then the second one, I think they got too, but it was put on a private building, and they did the same thing. They figured it out, but they couldn't get access to it, so they did something else. I might be. I'd have to go like. I'm just gonna go.
I
I'm gonna
didn't
guess because I think it was like, wasn't it like a drone like burnt it or something?
I didn't even know that that it happened again. I just knew about the first
Yeah,
one.
it happened a second time. I think they did something with a drone to like take it down or something. I have to. I mean, the person that's interested can go and find a plethora of YouTube videos where they depict the process of them finding this, and then you can accurately figure out what the second one was. But he did it again, and they figured it out a second time, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it reminds me of Twitch plays Pokemon. I mean, this is clearly probably like the Shia LaBeouf situation is probably just like people I wouldn't want to hang out with, but like Twitch plays Pokemon had everyone tuned in to like try to beat or not beat this Pokemon game
Really, I've never heard of it.
together. You've never heard of Twitch plays Pokemon?
No,
Oh my
is it
god,
good?
bro! Like,
I'll write that one down too.
so all it is like they ran like Pokemon Red or Pokemon Blue or whatever, and like on Twitch you were able to enter like a direction or whatever, like a
A hive
menu,
mind input.
and like and it would just do it. So like yeah, like it's just Twitch trying to like progress the game of Pokemon, and they were like, can it be done? Can like hundreds of thousands of strangers like find a way to like progress through this game? And it went through so many ups and downs. Like at one point ever they released like every single Pokemon, because you could do that at like the
Oh, so
PC.
they
Just like
sabotaged
released
the
all of them.
game.
Yeah, and like eventually they instituted like a democratic mode where like everyone votes on the next move, because that was the only way they were going to get through the like cave dungeon or whatever. And it took them like I think 29 days, but eventually Twitch beat
29
Pokemon.
days of like consecutive like the hours, like it did not 29 days, 29 days from start to
Yeah,
finish, but like real time playing, it took 29 days worth of hours and sessions to finally beat it.
yeah, because it went on
Wow.
all night too,
Oh, okay.
and yeah, it was an insane moment. I
Man,
can't believe you've never
I'm gonna
heard
have
of
to
it.
watch like a
You could probably
highlight
look up like a yeah,
because
yeah.
there's no
Like
way I
there
could
was
watch that. But it would also be cool seeing like the moment when they're like, I don't think I've ever beat Red or Blue, but like imagine if they were just like surfing around like in the open water or something, or just like exploring.
there's a lot of lore behind it. There's like Bird Jesus, and because the Pidgeot was like somehow super strong, and so yeah, that nickname is Bird Jesus, and like
Because he was like their
it's just
go-to Pokemon.
yeah, dude, it's incredible. You need to watch like a compilation
So
highlight
they
video of it.
nicknamed it. They did all the intricate like things in the game as like a hive mind. Like just wow.
Yeah, they somehow were able to do it, and like yeah, dude, it's just people entering commands, and then like it would do it in the order that it was
So
entered.
it internet wise controlled off chat. It wasn't actually somebody like, oh, this is what you vote, do it. This is what you vote, do it. Like it was actually literally just doing it through the computer.
Yeah, so there was democracy mode and anarchy mode. Anarchy mode is just like chat can put in whatever command it wanted to, and then like in the order that it was entered, it would do it.
Oh man! So if you have 1,000 people putting in like A left, up A left, B, and so it just looks like nothing's getting accomplished.
Exactly. And then like there was democracy mode, which they had to institute in order to get through the dungeon, because there was just like no way. Like it's the one where you have to like hit strength to like move rocks and stuff. And like yeah, democracy mode was like every I think it was 30
It would
seconds
execute.
it would do another it would do yeah, the most voted action. But in the meantime, you could vote to go back to anarchy mode. So
Oh
the
no!
whole hive mind had to choose to go into democracy mode.
I'm so into this. I want to see like maybe the entire cave scene probably takes like 12 hours or something.
Oh, it's crazy. But yeah, that reminds me. Now there's a basically Twitch plays football.
No.
There's a real life football league called the Fan Controlled Football League, where like fans can vote on the next play that they're gonna run.
Okay. And so
But it's real people.
okay, so they just the Twitch is basically the coach, and they use democracy again to decide if they want to do a a sweep or a fake or whatever
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then they still have to execute it to their own capability. It's just they decide what the playbook is.
Yeah. Johnny Manziel's in it.
Interesting. I wonder how
I don't know if you
successful
know
it is.
who he
Not
is,
that the
but
hive mind's gonna
I think it
outsmart
just
a
started.
good coach, but like that's still neat to see. Like it actually might even in some ways like I know like playbooks, like building playbooks into teams, like
Yeah.
understanding like, oh well, the Seahawks like to pass more. So you almost kind of expect that from them. Whereas if you can get something that you have no expectations, you can't you can't like get a consistent basis as much. Like, oh, this is totally how Belichick would react to being fourth down and 20. Like he 100% is going to pass. Whereas like the fan base chooses, a fake run into a pass or something that like is off the wall so you can't like put your finger on it. That would be really cool to see.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, it's interesting. I actually haven't watched it yet, but like I need to like dial in. I think you have to pay to actually be one of the people that like votes and makes the plays. And then like the more you participate, the more your vote counts for like future people or like compared to future people.
Huh. So they put more like weight in it if you like so it's pay to play almost.
Pretty much. And if you're an early adopter, you're much better. What a concept though, huh?
Yeah, the so another hive mind related thing that I thought of initially was quite literally they held a trivia. I know that Moist Critical hosted it, Penguin Zero.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
him.
him. I used to watch his old YouTube content. I don't really watch like anything that he does except for like when it becomes like trendy, like what he did. But so I was over at a friend's house and he was watching this thing where him and this other guy hosted basically trivia, but they would ask a question, and the one that comes to mind was, "What's the best Pokemon game?" And so Twitch chats what their answer is, and so there's four people on the board that can't see that hive mind, like they use this, it was an app or a website to submit their answer, and then basically like Family Feud, they would have to like choose what it is, and then it would basically they're trying to guess what Twitch's favorite is, and so it's a hive mind answer, literally Family Feud. It's a census of thousands of people, and so that's how you would like know what the answer was. It was a fill in the blank, and so that was pretty neat to see.
That is neat. I would have to go and watch that. I like his stuff a lot. I think he's grown as a person a lot too. So big fan of his content.
Maybe I'll try to squeeze some in there. I bite off more than I can chew on a regular basis, but every time I see like somebody show me something of his, I'm always like dying. Like he was doing the virtual Mario Kart where you can like put it in your living room and like drive around or something like that. And he basically had like,
The first thing I ever watched him do was him playing Oregon Trail.
oh my gosh, that was the Penguin Zero days on YouTube, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
Oh, I gotta
yeah.
go look at that now because I think I always go back to his Dora video. That was great.
He also played Quap.
I remember that one.
It's so good.
I gotta look at the
Yeah.
Oregon Trail one. That's probably a classic.
Another really good one is the Olympic game one.
No, the in recent
Yeah.
times he did like the chess tournament or whatever on Twitch, and
Yeah.
you can see the highlight for it. So apparently they like muted him for profanity or something or whatever the reason was, and he beat somebody. I forget who it was. Maybe it was Mr. Beast or something. He beat somebody pretty big in like less than 10 moves, and so he was like going off, and he was like you could see like he was getting real, but they had him muted, and then so as soon as they unmuted him, he said something like, "Look at that fucking big dick moves" or something like that, or like something super hilarious, or like my big pee down it, or something bad, like, and they were like, "Oh, right back to mute," and it was like the perfect timing. It was hilarious. I keep seeing like those like little snippets of his content that like break through because he's always like a super funny dude.
Yeah, he's great. Oh,
All right, so I got one more question to ask you, and then after this resolves, we can probably wrap it up. So, the fourth and final question I ask everybody is, how do you feel about Bitcoin?
how do I feel about Bitcoin? We've talked about this several times.
Touched on it.
I Yeah, I think Bitcoin is very cool, but I am much more interested in the impact that blockchain
Yep.
has on the rest of industry than Bitcoin itself. I think that blockchain has a chance to like revolutionize the way we do so many different things. Just it's the most like secure and like fastest way to deliver information and like transfer things digitally. So I think there's many things that are untouched when it comes to blockchain that we haven't explored yet. And Bitcoin is just like a cool thing. A lot of people have gotten rich off of Bitcoin, and it seems to be doing better than ever. So I think it's really neat.
So you're very long essentially. Like Ethereum is a big go-to whenever people think blockchain, and so do you not have a position in Ethereum, being that you are so pro blockchain?
I mean, all the like Ethereum's obviously like the second, most secure coin, I guess, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, or like the most traded one. So yeah, like cryptocurrency in general is pretty cool. I think there's like
Secured or
too
most
many
traded are
altcoins.
poor ways of putting it. It is considered the second, based on market cap. Now, as far as most traded,
Right, that's what I
it could
meant.
be,
Yeah,
just to clarify, because I think like most traded, like Doge might be in the category of most traded. I don't actually know what that statistic is. You'd have to look at 24-hour volume,
sure.
but actually I could probably tell you here. 24-hour volume
Yeah,
chart dominance.
yeah. I knew that
But
like
yeah, it's the second highest
Ethereum
market cap,
is.
and because of
Yep.
blockchain, because it is like, if it is the internet of 1990 is what Ethereum is being pegged to be. And so, I mean, you're definitely not wrong, and I like that you support it. Do you not invest?
No, but I don't invest in a lot of things just because it's too expensive. Like
Malarkey.
all of my other hobbies and things are just like expensive.
What other
Like
hobbies?
I mean, magic cards, vinyl records, like my rent. Yeah.
My rent.
Yeah.
Magic cards
I
and
don't,
vinyl
yeah,
records, fortunately, of those things as investments, have potential to hold value, which is cool. At least you.
they do have value. So like none of my hobbies feel like a money pit, thankfully. But no, just like, cost of living here is quite high compared to most likely where you're from. Like we're moving into an $1,800 two-bedroom apartment and we feel like we're getting a huge bargain.
Wow. So, yeah. So I think the
So
going rate around here, I've heard, and this is subject to a lot of factors, but if we're looking at just in terms of house, I think $350 a room is like the going rate. And, of course, if we're talking about apartments, I think that might be a little bit more easy to like lay your hands on it, opposed to a house that has a big yard and a garage. It's a little more than just how many rooms.
yeah. So we're moving into like a two-bedroom, two-bath apartment with a parking space, which is like incredible for 1,800. Like that normally would go for like 22,
Now, does that
maybe
reflect
2,300.
your mean income in Chicago? You don't have to reveal how much you make, but now if you compare that to Buffalo, what the mean rent in Buffalo versus how much you can make in Buffalo. This is kind of coming back to the conversation about LA has super inflated prices for just any job. Like a normal IT guy could make
Yeah,
120,000, but 50,000 of that is literally his rent.
yeah. Like the wage is pretty good, but I would say like um I'm making about the same here that I was in Nashville, and I feel like Chicago is actually a bargain compared to Nashville.
Cool.
Uh, yeah, like Nashville is stupid expensive for what it is. Like it's a very quickly growing city, and so that's what kind of causes the cost of living to be so high.
Hmm.
Whereas like Chicago has been relatively stagnant, not like in a bad way, just like they haven't had the hyper growth that Nashville has, and so Chicago got expensive, kind of a while ago, and kind of stayed that way. Whereas like other places that are big cities like San Francisco, New York have always been expensive and are getting way more expensive. Like it's a cost of living crisis there. Whereas like Chicago is probably the most affordable big city you can live in.
Huh. Yeah, I wouldn't mind. getting out and trying some big cities. It's part of my future ambitions. But that being said, I generally add this PSA because I feel like everybody needs to know like what Bitcoin has to offer for the little guy, and that everybody, no matter their financial situation, should put what they can afford to in Bitcoin because of what it's going to mean as a security for the population as a whole. Like this is an opportunity to get in on something before before it is what it is pegged to be, like investing in internet or investing in Google before you realize Google was going to take over, modern internet. And this is like a true and genuine, like it is a finite resource. It's not like you can just, oh, well, I'm going to get into housing after the housing boom. Like once it's too late, like it'll be harder to get it. And it, you have to have a lot of, financial respect for a store of value, and I guess a lot of financial intelligence to even be concerned with that. But it's a really good opportunity for people that could really benefit from a scalable investment that cannot be depreciated by any government entity, and that is like way more important than people realize. Like people don't have proper financial education nowadays, and so I put this in here as a PSA, essentially.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with all that. Everyone, all of the experts that back Bitcoin unanimously agree that like it's most likely going to be like $1 million per coin. So like, yeah, it's never too late to start investing. And you know what? If I had a little bit extra income to go around, and I probably will after I move, since I'm moving out of a one bedroom into a shared apartment. So I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily an opportunity for somebody to grow rich. However, that might be a byproduct of getting in something that is going to add security. This is a similar aspect to adding money to your 401k, where it is giving you a security for the future. However, there's pitfalls to buying Bitcoin, and there's pitfalls to investing in the 401k, and we're not really able to control those circumstances, but any smart investment um, firm that would control your money will encourage you to diverse your portfolio and or be risk adverse. And so even if you're participating in 401k, to put some in Bitcoin because of what it has to offer is like so I just keep trying to tell people. And I'm not like, even though I'm pro crypto, I generally only put 50 to $100 in a week, and that's probably on the more aggressive side. Like I put money away for other things too. And so literally anything that you're capable of putting up that you feel like you might have wasted. Like even if you're like, all right, well, instead of doing scratch offs, I'm going to do this because it might be like an investing in Tesla, but it might also be a way for you to create wealth that nobody can touch and is only going to go up. And people don't understand, again, the financial education that saving is toxic, and actually investing is how you create lifelong wealth. And so this is a similar thing, except investing in the S&P can plummet, whereas investing in the Bitcoin, in theory and proven analytics, will only go up because of supply and demand and also sound money principles. So I PSA this to people that like, hey, like if you have any ability to save or you are a saver, like this is what you should be doing. So
True. Or instead of putting any money into any investments, you start a revolution where you don't need to invest for your retirement. You're just in a utopia.
ooh, so we like hire on a hire we elect like more liberal or people focused policies. We get UBI going and stuff, and then we're just
Yeah,
always good.
yeah, like
I could feel for that.
yeah, dude, like yeah, like I think that like as a species, our end goal should have been to automate all labor so that we could all live a life of leisure.
Yeah.
That should have been the goal. That's like as soon as we started working, we should have been like, man, we should just make this fucking automated. Let a robot do this. so I can go fucking read a book or like jerk off all
or
day. Like,
fishing or whatever.
if that's what I want to do,
Yeah.
yeah, if that's what I want to do, like, that's what we should have been working
I
towards.
totally
But, you
side with
know,
that. I think work is good for the soul, but when I say work, I don't mean like the general like go to Kohl's and stock shelves. I mean like something that you actively pursue, and that can be literally like working on your boat or woodworking, or hell, it could be building houses for people. I think work is very good for individuality, but like it helps for
yeah,
people.
yeah, I'm not saying we wouldn't do anything. I just think that we would get to pursue what we want to do
Yes,
more. Like,
100%.
you know, like maybe we'd have more musicians or painters if it wasn't such
You're
a financial risk to like do that and pursue
Yeah,
that.
we could definitely be
my,
way more
my dog just
culturally
hit my
wealthy if we
microphone.
don't have to work for living wealth. And yeah, I get it. The powers that be don't want it to be that way, or we have a society haven't decided that's the direction that we want to go. So
So let's hope for a revolution, and we could do away with the idea of a 401k or needing to put money away so that you don't die old and
hungry.
broke. Yeah.
I get it. And, we shouldn't have to have an insurance policy. We just should just have a plan, and I completely stand by that. And I think maybe ultimately, probably beyond our lifetime, we might achieve that if we don't kill ourselves first, because it's just a matter of time. Things are becoming automated. Like there are processes that are automated. They're not every day, but there are automated processes, and self driving and some production. Like it's there. It's just how long it takes for it to grow and to be completely common in every field and or task. But let's just say snapshot 21.3 or something. uh Maybe that's where we'll be. I don't know. I mean, technology in the
Yeah,
last
yeah.
2 decades is exponentially blown up, so shit, we might even see it before me and you croak.
I think with the idea of machine learning and AI, like we're just going to get there at an exponential rate. So like, I think it's almost impossible to predict, but it is something that will happen eventually. Maybe not in our lifetimes, but yeah, like I don't see a world where things aren't fully automated at some point. Like eventually, robots will be cheaper than human capital, and so like whether we're set up for it or not, like uh, automation is coming,
Oh, for
and
sure.
so we need to do it so that it's not a world of chaos, I
And there's
guess.
people that are concerned about it, because it could, with automation, without, let's say, treating the symptoms as it goes, cause a lot of. It could be like another pandemic esque effect, where Andrew Yang talks about it, because like truck drivers are going to be automated out in the next few years, and that is a large portion of our workforce. And so, what are we going to do? Get them another job, or are we going to be able to UBI so that they can, I don't know if you've ever seen, he talks about it on Joe Rogan too. I don't know if you know who Andrew Yang is, but he is a big,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I I'm okay with Andrew Yang. I think he's a little too capitalist for me still, but like I think he talks about some cool things and has great ideas
Yeah.
that haven't been introduced to the Democratic Party. I have a lot of friends that are really big Yang people, whereas like in the Democratic primary, I was Bernie all the way, but I wouldn't have minded Yang, but I like someone who isn't afraid to say like, yeah, we need socialized medicine for everybody. Whereas like he kind of said it's something we can think about. I don't
Socialized medicine. So
know.
speaking of which, my girlfriend opened up a medical bill today for, it was she didn't know, but her insurance, she's got like, dude, she's got some wonky insurance that nobody ever knows of whenever she calls around, through where her dad works. And her dad works at a Honda dealership. And so like you think pretty modern, but like I think they were so cheap that they got this insurance that like isn't accepted at enough places. But they decided to drop coverage for the hospital that she went to for a basic treatment, which was just blood work to check something, and didn't know, because they didn't tell her that they no longer cover that hospital. And they sent her a bill, and it was just under $1,000 for blood work. And it's like, holy shit. And this is why people go bankrupt when they have like serious medical issues in this country.
Yeah, dude, it's fucked up. Like I've gotten a bill once because they didn't take my insurance in Tennessee when I had a New York policy for $17,000 because I got an MRI because I had stomach pain.
They give you an
So
MRI for
like,
stomach pain? Does that actually?
dude, they couldn't really figure out what it was, so they just wanted to make sure that like whatever it was wasn't like
Whew, buddy. How'd
life
that go?
threatening. It was fine, or it might have been a CAT scan. I
No,
don't
no, no.
know.
But the 17,000. Like, I'm glad you're okay. But like, what?
Oh, dude, I disputed it on my credit report, and they took it off for some
Did
reason.
that hurt your credit? Like, who'd you dispute with collections?
Oh yeah, dude, I had shit credit for a long time, and then yeah, it was just like a negative on my credit report, and so I disputed every single thing in my credit report, and they took that one off for some reason, and then my credit shot up because like I didn't owe that much money anymore.
Huh. I mean, hey, you made it out of it. But I've seen some stories that are like, man, I'm pretty stoic, and it takes a lot to like move me. But like sometimes when I see these stories on Reddit of people that like, oh, he just broke his leg, like missing a step, and now the whole family is like 200K in debt or something. Like, and it's like, what? Like,
Yeah, that's why we absolutely need Medicare for all. Like the fact that you could have insurance and someone just like arbitrarily doesn't accept it is the most like fraudulent bullshit
uh
ever,
huh.
right? Like,
Or
and with
for-profit
Medicare for all,
hospitals.
you force
Like that can't go
yeah,
on anymore, man.
with Medicare for all, like it's like if you don't accept this insurance that everybody's covered with, you're just not going to have any business. So I think Medicare for all is the only solution because if you just have like a public option with private insurance still there, you're just not going to have enough providers that accept the public option, and then we're just stuck in a shit situation still. So yeah, Medicare for all or bust, in my
Dude, yeah,
opinion.
some of these European unions are like looking really tasty because of how shit we get treated. I mean, like we have a lot of really good reasons to live in America, but there's also some pretty disgustingly bad reasons that you don't want to live in America.
Yeah, if we're the wealthiest country in the world and arguably the history of the world on a per capita basis, there is no reason why life should be this hard.
Hmm. But the wealthy people still
Everyone
want to
else
keep
has
going.
figured
They're
it
still
out.
greedy, and or we just as a society haven't stood our ground on calling them out.
Well, I think they win the war of culture, right? Like, how many people do you know hate unions that could benefit from one
I've never
tremendously?
personally like seen somebody hate unions. I think the only people that hate unions are the people that don't benefit from it. For example, the employer. Whereas unions, like there's a lot of unions around here because of the Rust Belt, dude. I've had opportunities to get in on the sheet metal union, the pipe fitters union, all that stuff, and I haven't done it for its own reasons, but I'm like never been anti-union.
So, like, Buffalo has a lot of union members as well,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a big enough subset of people there that believe that a lot of the heavy industry and manufacturing left because the unions demanded too much. Like that is their belief. Like they think that unions are the problem and not the fact that they made it cheaper for them to just go manufacture steel in Mexico and wherever else.
Yeah, so it's
So
easy to
like
pick like which enemy you want to look at. So I can speak on behalf of this because there's an ongoing problem with General Electric is based out of Erie. It's been for a long time. It is now Wabtec, but all my life growing up, they've always been union, and so they've consistently. It was always known as the best place to make money in town because of the union, but it was also the fastest place to be unemployed because the union demanded so much from them that I think they constantly would go through. They would go through like busy times, and then they would lay a bunch of people off, or they would just whatever they were making too much money, lay them off. There's a crazy dilemma of it, but we ran into the issue in the last 5 years where they made a branch down in Texas, um, and they were sending production down there because they didn't have union laws, so they were able to pay whatever immigrants, white Americans, whatever you name it, just people in general, less than $20 an hour, opposed to some of the numbers that I heard up here were like disgusting. Like we're talking like high 30s at entry level machine shop jobs, and then crazy benefits because of the union. So it isn't the union's fault. I think it's really good propaganda to think that the union's the reason why they're leaving, when really it's the company just doesn't want to pay, fair or a little bit beyond fair wage for these skilled labor jobs. Like they're all skilled positions.
Yeah, dude, that's like exactly it. That's what I mean by like they're winning the culture war. Like they've convinced so many like um people that could benefit from unionization that unions are bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're winning that war, and that's why union participation is like the lowest it's ever been. Whereas the biggest the middle class ever was in the 50s and 60s when union participation was at its
Mm-hmm.
peak. So I think that every single person should be represented by a
Yeah.
union. I think it'll go a long way to repairing a lot of the theft that has been taken from the working class and siphoned off to the 1%. So yeah, unions, dude. Everyone should try to unionize if it's possible.
Yeah, I could play devil's advocate a little bit here though and see, just to kind of tickle this conversation a little bit more. I'm pro union, but I want to kind of hold the floor here on thinking. I think it gets a bad rap because I've personally like seen, talked to, and seen experiences where, like, let's say I was with somebody I'm associated through, I don't know, bowling league, and they have a brother, cousin, sister, father who worked at this place that I'm talking about, and they would literally tell me stories about like the amount that they don't do as a union worker because of how they're protected by the union. And I've heard so many stories growing up, people that work there that get away with abuse of like being a part of the union. And like literally when a union can be created, sometimes with how they try to protect their employers is they employ them to only do one thing and one thing only, even if it doesn't really fit production upkeep. For example, like a crane lift, like the guy that would really move the locomotives, like he might go up there for 8 hours, he cannot do anything but that job even though he works for 1 full hour. Or he is a forklift driver and he'll just take the forklift and hide it behind one of the garages and sleep. And they can't do anything about it because he's protected by the union. And I think it creates an opportunity where people can abuse it. And I've heard in like serious stories of this. And I feel like there's a solution to it. I don't know what it is because, the concept of a union is still pretty new to me. But when you see that, you could understand why like maybe unionizing isn't good for general like capitalism. Like there's no, they're not getting anything out of these people. And so I don't know why that seems to happen. So maybe that's why it's gotten a bad rap.
I mean, that just tells me that that business is bad at their half of the collective bargaining, right?
Yeah, the union communication.
Um, it probably means that that union is bad enough at their
Mm-hmm.
finances that they can't withstand the strike enough to get their terms better when it comes to the collective bargaining
I'm not
agreement.
sure if we're on the same
Uh,
page.
right. So, though the reason those people can't get fired is because the union got it written into the collective bargaining
Yeah.
agreement. So, this is something that the company side agreed to.
Mm-hmm. So it is on them essentially.
And yeah, because if they didn't want that to be part of the collective bargaining agreement, they can hold their ground and not agree to it. And I'm sure the union would fire back and hold their ground.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just who can hold on the longest, the company or the striking
Yeah, they've
workers?
had that type of situation at least twice, I think, over the year of union not agreeing on this or you not agreeing on this and yada yada, and there's always maybe once a year, big layoff at GE, and they go from 1,600 employees to 900, 1,200, I don't know, and so that's why I can at least somewhat comfortably play the devil's advocate and like, I don't know, just like stir up that conversation. Also considering, hey, if you had to pay 12 to 1,600 people this $35 to $40 an hour tremendous benefits package, what if you reduced it to non-labor and then you could afford to pay 3,200 people $17? Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's kind of like the problem with some of this. Um, like NAFTA. Like the fact that they could offload a lot of this labor over to Mexico or other developing countries has just like gutted the blue collar middle class
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of America. And the fact that they could do that within the country itself, like so you have GE, New Era, the hat company is headquartered in Buffalo, and they had a production factory in Derby, New York, that was all union and produced caps for almost 100 years. Well, they opened a facility in Florida so they could pay $12 an hour and laid off everybody there. So, like, the fact that you could do that within your own country, I think is pretty fucked up. And that's why I don't know. I'm a little, I think we need to centralize some of the things in this country as much as possible, such as like labor relations, so that, you know, the whole country is a fair shake at how certain things go. You know, I think the fact that like more than half the states, like you can't even really unionize, just kind of fucks it over for the other states that
Yeah.
can.
Some states
And
can't
it just
actually
creates like
run
unfair
unions.
conditions. Yeah, so right to work laws make it so that you can't really unionize,
Hmm.
because in states that have right to work, um, you can choose not to join the union and still be allowed to work there. Whereas, like in New York, there's no such thing as right to work, and I'm sure there's not in
You
Pennsylvania
can
either,
work and not
where
be
it's
in
all or
union. I
nothing.
think I don't know up to date, but I've talked to an old timer who was a part of a shop, and they all were kind of like drilling. Like he got hired and he wasn't in the union, and then like they were kind of drilling him to get on board with the union, but he was like, no, like he didn't. Even as a worker, he didn't want to be a union guy, and I don't know, remember what his reasonings were, but it was like everybody was like, why aren't you a part of this? And I think he was a very, very, very like worker bee. And I think he just kind of saw how he was like, these people were getting softened by the union. And this is a specific example. And I don't want to badmouth unions because I think they offer a really good thing for, you know, the small guys. And I don't want to completely badmouth GE because I've also talked to people that were hard workers at GE, but I've also seen like the yin and yang in these situations. But he was very anti-union. He wanted to just go to work, get paid, not have to pay dues, just, you know, sign the check and go home.
I guess the difference is if like he can choose to, like if he can go to work on his own
Mm-hmm.
terms, then I guess that's fine. I think the problem with certain in Pennsylvania might be a right to work. I don't know offhand, but right to work means that people can get the benefits from the union without actually being in the union. So it really just like loses the strength of the union. Like the power of the union is the power of the collective.
I don't
So
know that that is a
obviously,
thing.
once all,
I don't know.
yeah, it just depends on if it's right to work or not. I mean, I could probably look that up.
Not too important.
There's a list of right to work
We
states.
started with Bitcoin and we ended up to worker compensation.
Yeah,
But there are very
it's
important
just something that
economic
I'm
topics
passionate about.
relating to Bitcoin, so I'm not upset. I just thought it was a cool string of connections.
Yeah, let me list of right to work states. Yeah, I mean, there's just been massive propaganda against workers' rights for so long that just gets adopted by other people. So let's
I
see.
wouldn't be surprised if it was
Okay, so Pennsylvania is a forced unionization
okay. So
state.
you have to be in the union or you
So
can't get the job
yes,
unless you're a contractor that has employees and does the gig that doesn't isn't a union. But gotcha.
yeah, like if the workplace has a union for certain roles, then you have to join the union if you want that
Yeah,
role.
that
They
makes
might
sense.
have non-unionized roles at that plant or whatever, but yeah, certain roles like you have to join the union in order
And
to
they're
be
still
in it.
hiring for unions all the time, even just not this summer, but the summer before. I was in communication with a guy who was a Boilermaker all his life. Couldn't recommend it enough. Work sale with another guy that summer and the last summer. Actually, one of my grandfather's best friends. He was in the union, and he says, you know, go join the sheet metal union, make good money. They can never take your union card. You can choose when to work. You get benefits, yada yada. Like they're very pro. Like this is just the Rust Belt. That's like what we do, blue collar union stuff.
Yep.
And I stand by it.
That's why
But their
certain
commitments, they're like 3 to 5 year commitments, and because of how I have a I could have a pretty turbulent future here in the next couple of years that doesn't involve me being here, I
Yeah.
can't commit to that.
Certain states, just the dynamic is very interesting to me. Like West Virginia is a heavily unionized state, but they consistently vote for politicians that are like anti-union, and it's just like one of the most like interesting factors that I can think of. Another place that I think is really interesting is Missouri. So Missouri has shifted pretty heavily to the right, which is generally anti-union. But they always vote for left-leaning things when it comes to a referendum.
Yeah.
Like they voted to raise their own minimum wage. They voted to get rid of right to work. So it's just so funny how like when you vote on individual platforms and like individual things, uh, generally left leaning policies are more popular. But when it comes to like the culture war of like the political parties, the Republicans are just like dominating in
Yeah,
so many
like Mitch
places.
McConnell and Ted Cruz, like they keep getting the cake, and it's like it's surprising to some people. Like after you see what they do or their negative support that people, but they like reelect them. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Like people constantly vote against their best interests, and I think it's because the media and specifically the right leaning media has pushed these like single issue voters um, so that we stay divided. Like I think in my like the conspiracy theory I believe the most is that most of the like Republican versus Democrat arguments come to dumb issues that separate us for things that we shouldn't be
Yes,
separate on
hundred
when we need to
percent.
unite as a working
100%.
class.
We actually
Like,
would most likely be able to get down to a lot of values we could all be on the same page with, but we politicize things that do not and have not any necessity to be politicized and create like almost a game out of it. Like even COVID was
yeah, yeah.
politicized. Oh my fucking God. Hydroxychloroquine
Oh, so
was
stupid.
also
Yeah.
literally heard stories of people saying that like they get quite like I forget where I heard this. A doctor never had a problem prescribing any medication ever, but then as soon as Trump came out about hydroxychloroquine, he no longer was able to independently decide if it was actually an option and viable to a patient treatment. He had to get clearance, had to like do paperwork saying why they think that it's actually going to work because it immediately became political. I've never heard of anything like that. Like all of a sudden, Bush is like pro Vicodin, so we're cutting back on Vicodin. Like that's crazy. I'm not trying to say that's
Yeah.
supporting like either party, but the fact that it completely changed the whole medical field because it was politicized, or
Yeah, it's crazy. I think the biggest one is probably abortion.
yeah,
Uh
yeah.
like
Why does that need to be political?
nobody in the world likes abortion, right? Like it's a very difficult decision for somebody to
Mm-hmm.
make, and like 9 times out of 10 they do it because nobody like they wouldn't be financially capable of taking care of another human being,
Mm-hmm.
especially
That
a
is definitely
child.
a majority. It's
And
not actually like the rape cases and stuff. It's people that like made a mistake, or
yeah,
they're like another one that I always say is a what do they call it? Residency in a hospital. Like imagine doing your residency and then you're pregnant and then it just completely ruins your career
yeah,
progress. Like I believe, but the fact that we have to elect politicians to decide.
yeah. And so like my thing is like, okay, I get it. You like you don't want people to have abortions. Like I understand. Like it's a very like difficult thing.
Goes against
But like even
Christianity.
if you make it if you make it illegal, like you're not going to stop
No.
abortion. You're just going to stop like safe abortions. And so the best way to reduce the number of abortions that are going to be happening is to create better economic factors for having
Or sex
children. So
education and
like
like all this other stuff. I mean, they
yeah,
try. Planned
yeah,
Parenthood exists
but
for that very reason, but
they vote for the party that continually suppresses, in my opinion, like the ability for the working class to have upward mobility and like live a better life. So if you voted for the Democrats, you're most likely going to vote for a party that supports like subsidized childcare.
mm-hmm.
And if you have subsidized childcare,
Social
that's going to make it
interest.
way more likely
Yeah,
that
yeah.
yeah, that people are going to be able to have
Left
kids
side
because like
caters
they can
social
actually afford
interest,
it.
and the right side kind of caters capital interest. And I think there's a healthy
Right.
balance between
So
the two, but some of the capitalist ideas have definitely become toxic.
that's why like I I hate that they're called pro-life because they're not pro-life. They're pro-birth. Like they don't want to support the kid once it's
Oh
born.
yeah.
Like they don't support
They don't
food
care about
stamps.
the life
They don't
afterwards,
support
but they
like
just want the life to exist. They want
yeah,
another worker. He's got to figure the rest
yeah,
out.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I don't think like most people that are anti-abortion think about it at that level. They just like vote for the party that says I don't like abortion. So like
Tristan has
it's just such an annoying issue because it's like if you want to have less abortions, you
yeah.
need to make it less like a situation that you need to have one.
Yeah, it's a pretty hard one too, and a lot of this stuff doesn't have nuance. And I'm a pretty gray I'm a pretty gray idealist when it comes to a lot of these topics. I've actually just started using purple lately because so far like I have a hard time like relating to an entire agenda of a party because I love a lot of red ideology, but I also side with a shit ton of blue ideology. But when it comes to like a specific topic such as abortion, I can't like stand on either side. I'm like it's hard because like all right, first trimester, like a few weeks and you're a nurse, like can I side with you getting abortion? Sure, like maybe your circumstances, desirable, but like some of these late term ones that people do, I'm like I can't side with that, man. Like that one's got to be pro life.
Well, what late term abortions? Like they don't
They,
exist.
I mean, two late terms. They've written books on this stuff.
I think most states have like a second trimester
Maybe they're
limit.
getting more
So
progressive
like
about it, but I remember having a conversation with I won't name drop somebody that like was pretty pro life and like this doctor's experience of doing late term abortions, and it may have been an older book, and so they've become more liberal and pro life like naturally, but I know that it exists. Maybe it is a hushed thing, like late term abortions, like they don't, like a lot of places can't do it, or you can't go to like the top hospitals, you have to go to like, I don't want to say like the dark hospitals, but you know what I'm talking
right.
about, right? Places that maybe don't get as
Yeah.
much revenue because they're not, UPMC or insert major hospital here, so they have to make exceptions to medical care.
Right. But it's still like to me it's all semantics. It's like you have to go to really the heart of the issue and why people get abortion and like treat that if you don't like it because
Or
otherwise like
sex
this is
education.
American. You have bodily autonomy. Like right? Like isn't that something that you believe in is like you have the free will and choice to do what you want with your body. And so yeah, like I don't think anybody likes abortion, right?
Yeah,
Like it's not something people like actively try to do. It's a very difficult
I've seen
decision.
pro-life
It's
people
something
say
that's like
that it shouldn't be taxpayer money that is allowing somebody to abort children because it can be expensive. I've seen that as a very toxic. Oh, yeah, well, like that shouldn't be medical care because it's not a. I'm just being devil's advocate here. I'm not saying that I side with that.
yeah, I don't know. I think like all medical things should probably be covered
Socialized
except for
health
like
insurance. We've both definitely touched and agreed
yeah,
on that
yeah.
one for sure.
Except like cosmetic surgeries that aren't
Reconstructive.
necessary. I guess that's something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you were like in an accident, I think that should be covered. But like, that's still just semantics. It's like you need to treat the symptoms of like why people do certain things and like like why is crime really high? Oh, because it's very hard to have upward mobility and like maybe it's hard to maintain a job like when you're having lower wages and like there's institutionalized racism. So like yeah, if you have better conditions for the working class, less people are going to resort to crime, and that's why like other countries that have better social safety nets have less crime, like most of Europe and like
Yeah.
Canada.
I want to see some real fundamental statistics about like I probably have heard them somewhere along the lines what it would take for our country fiscally to support socialized healthcare, and I've like today I literally I can play devil's advocate for all these topics because of how I sit like on both sides sometimes, and like all right, well, some of these countries that have socialized healthcare like pin one like Germany, for example. Germany's population is like what, less than 50 million, and ours is like 320, so I see how that could probably cause some problems. However, I also understand that for-profit hospitals and insurance companies owning hospitals is a big fucking red flag. And so if some of that stuff didn't exist, we wouldn't have to worry about
Yeah,
like, oh, potentially you can't afford it. Okay, well, we can't have socialized healthcare, but if it wasn't for profit, then maybe we would be able to afford it at least on a reasonable level. Maybe that blood test could be a reasonable $40, not 920 out of pocket.
Yeah.
Like that's insane.
Yeah, you've got
I'm
to
trying
also
to
think
think
about like
gray.
economies of
That's all.
scale.
It's like I'm trying to think gray,
Like
reasonable. Maybe it's not free. Maybe we can just come to a middle grounds where an MRI costs $100 instead of it making you go broke.
think about the fact that like if every single American was on the same health insurance
Mm-hmm.
plan, do you think any medical provider would at that point be for profit or like at cost? Because you can't refuse what they're going to offer you, because then you have nobody that's going to come to your
Yeah, I
service.
mean they're gonna stay on
Right.
the other
So
side
like
and say, well, then you die because you can't, and
the
it's like it's a big
the
standoff.
the entire US population covered under the same insurance would just drastically reduce
I
prices
bet.
on
I'd
medical
love to see
care.
it.
And then like two, when like if you substitute the premiums you're paying for health insurance now and just consider that a tax, like we would be saving money compared to what we already pay for healthcare.
Just the premiums that are expended throughout a yearly basis.
Yeah, not even just like your premiums on your current health insurance, your private insurance, but then the deductible that you pay, and then just like the cost of the socialized medicine that the US already pays, which is incredibly
Mm-hmm.
bloated. Like we spend so much per capita on healthcare from our tax dollars and get hardly anything compared to what these other
Because
countries
of
get.
inflated
And that's
prices
because
for $500
inflated
ibuprofen
prices.
in the hospital.
Yeah, it's inflated prices, and the fact that all this other private insurance means that like there's only a few people that will even take the socialized medicine that the US
Mm-hmm.
offers. So it's just like a multitude of factors. So like when you think about it as like converting the cost that we already spend publicly on health insurance, in addition to transferring the premiums that we already spend on our private insurance, uh, the total cost that we spend on healthcare would be dropped dramatically by switching to socialized
Sure.
medicine.
So,
Yeah.
what do you think? So one of these things that I tell some people that kind of and why I stand gray on this, because socialized medicine has made an attempt, I guess, through Obamacare. Not exactly, but it's kind of been like, Medicare for all. Like you can't be exempt. I think was one of the major things. People with like priors and stuff. Now, when I was,
Yeah.
I think 19, 20. I was 20. I had a personal plan through St. Vincent, which is a pretty long-standing insurance company for healthcare. I think my premium was 60. Let's just go up a little bit higher. So 70, 70, 75 a month. And I handed it to my boss and he paid it. That was like my personal insurance rate. And then I think 3 years went by and we had a policy switch where I worked. And we went from St. Vincent, which covered my personal doctor, to UPMC, which did not cover it, which was immediately like, that's weird that you're already like choosing sides because you own the other hospital. But on top of that, I tried to go get a policy for Highmark by myself outside my employer and just pay for it myself. And she said, at my age and condition, non-smoker, 23, I would have to pay somewhere in the ballpark of like $270 a month for that same plan that I had 4 years ago. And I'm trying to come to somebody who maybe has information regarding what is responsible for that, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. So do you know what Obamacare
Um,
is actually?
Back when I loosely followed politics, like even looser than now, I was under the impression that the agenda was to allow healthcare for people that were getting denied. And I think that one of the topics, like I just covered, was people with priors and elderly people that were just getting blatantly denied or getting insane premiums from insurance companies because they knew they were expensive, like kind of like flagging people for smoking. I think
Yeah.
that was what he was trying to do, is, hey, everybody is
Yeah.
entitled to the right for health insurance. And so I understand how maybe putting everybody on board inflates the prices, but that's
Yeah, he basically created a marketplace that you can shop around to different health insurance companies, private companies, and then they subsidize the fact that they had to cover pre-existing
mm-hmm.
conditions. But this was a healthcare system that was already implemented by Mitt Romney in Massachusetts. So this is like a one for one recreation of a Republican style universal healthcare plan, which is really just a subsidy for private healthcare
Bizarre.
insurance
So it
companies
wasn't a innately democratic idea. You said Mitt Romney had already instituted this, and you think because,
at the state level in
huh? So
Massachusetts.
this was
Yeah.
already a thing for them. How was it going? And
No, yeah, yeah. It's basically just a subsidy for private insurance companies. And so they're
how did it
free to
prove?
like charge whatever premiums they
How
want.
did
Yeah.
it fare
And
in
it did
Massachusetts?
I think it did pretty well there. Massachusetts, though, is a state that's like pretty high taxed and was able to have a very good Medicaid system to cover, lower income people. But in general, like Obamacare, in my opinion, was just a step in the right
Okay.
direction. Uh, a lot of Democrats are not for Medicare for all. Like they're for a public option that covers everybody as a default if you do not want private insurance.
Okay.
But yeah,
Like
my issues with
Medicaid,
that is
or
that like,
like the literally the senior citizen
yeah,
Medicare, where it might not be your best option, but you're at least granted a reasonable health insurance.
yeah. But what I don't like about that is unless you force every single medical provider to accept that
Mm-hmm.
insurance, it's not going to help anything. Like the prices are still going to stay high,
Mm-hmm.
and like people are still going to go bankrupt over medical bills if their employer offers shitty
Do you
insurance.
feel like reducing the concept of churches being churches? I guess them too, but not really. Churches and hospitals, they are subject to nonprofits, so they don't get taxed. Uh, and
No, I don't think that goes far. That doesn't go far enough
like
because
that
then
won't
like
work if you tell
uh
hospitals like, hey, like you can't get this anymore. Like you have to pay taxes. Do you think it would cause them to shift or maneuver positively?
no, because I don't think hospitals should have a bottom line. It should like
I
I
agree
mean,
with the
yeah, I guess they
sentiment.
should be nonprofit, but what I think is really the most needle mover is people power. So like, if you have everybody in the country collectively bargaining for what they're going to be willing to pay for health insurance, such as Medicare for
Yeah.
all, uh, they have no choice other than to accept the price that the U.S. government is willing to pay for
I
this
get it.
service.
My concern is that they are hedging the ultimate debt against you, which is where I think there needs to be some serious catalyst. Because imagine you're on that public insurance and you go to your local hospital and they don't accept the insurance, and you're like, okay, well, like you have to. And they're like, oh, we don't want to. And then the
Well,
guy's
that's
like, well,
a
I need a heart transplant. And they're like, oh, well, you're going to pay our price or we're not going to accept you. You know what I mean?
well, that's what I'm saying. If they don't want to, then they're not going to have any
Yes,
income.
and they'd have to be
So
a
it's
big enough
like,
impact to where their revenue gets cut into a the
and
message is sent.
the only way it's going to have a big enough impact is if literally every single person who would be a potential customer has that insurance, and that's it.
Sounds reasonable, man. And
You
there's
know,
smarter people than us that are running this country, and yet why is this not like a thing? Why are we so far behind?
because because they probably get many donations from pharmaceutical
Many
companies
big pharma.
and insurance companies. Yeah, you just like they keep it that way because even in the Democratic primary, there was a lot of Democrats that initially started campaigning on Medicare for all, and then once they get further down the
They
process,
need more money.
maybe we should have a public option. Yeah, like Elizabeth Warren was someone who flip flopped from Medicare for all to like, oh, Medicare for everyone else that doesn't have private insurance, and it's like that's not far enough. Like it's not going to move the needle
I think this
enough.
is why people
And
like
so you
Bernie.
see the people flip
Bernie's
flop.
held his
Yeah,
values since the
Bernie's
beginning.
been incredibly
Yes.
consistent. There's probably no politician who's been as
People
consistent as Bernie
respect
Sanders.
consistency. Same with like the guy I mentioned earlier, not David Fravor,
Yeah,
the
and
guy that
like
had a consistent story.
so genuine
Yeah,
too. Someone on the right that I actually appreciate for that is Justin Amish, or I don't know how to
I
pronounce his
actually don't
name.
know.
But he left the Republican Party and went to Libertarian once like Trumpism started to take over because he's like, you do not believe in the ideals that like I have, and I got elected for my ideals, so I'm going to switch my party to Libertarian because that's what I
Hmm.
believe. I mean, he caucuses with the Republicans, which is to be expected because like he still needs to have his vote count, I guess. But he stood his ground. Like he has not moved once on his libertarian position, which I vehemently disagree with. Like pretty much all libertarian
Like
ideals, but
what? Which
like,
ideals do you
hey
think
man, if
libertarians hold that you completely disagree with?
basically anyone who's like an ANCAP, like people that are far enough that are like, yeah, dude, there should basically be no government. When we're talking about like how I agree with socialized medicine, so like that's
Mm-hmm.
couldn't be further than like what they
Yeah,
believe
so
in.
it is very hard for me to like say that and I don't actually feel like I'm a libertarian. Sometimes I try to identify with them because my favorite value out of like this entire conversation is literally one of their favorite quotes is live and let live. Like I think I really do side with that to an
Yeah,
exception now. I think people try to like do the devil's advocate thing and say, "Oh, okay, so you're okay with underage marriages and stuff," and it's like, no, like I don't directly support people marrying and 12-year-olds and stuff, but like it's like the same thing as saying, oh, well, I'm pro-choice because I think like a woman should be able to like have control of her body. Oh, so you're saying they should pull 6-month-old babies out of people's body? It's like a very easy way of like picking.
yeah, dude,
I
they're not arguing in like good faith. So like, yeah, I disagree with pretty much most like libertarian economic ideas. So like that'll stop me from ever voting for a
Yeah,
libertarian. But it doesn't mean like I don't respect him because like that's what he campaigned on and that's what he won
yeah.
on.
So obviously
So
you had
like
support.
that is what yeah, so like if if he won on that platform and he sticks to that no matter what and doesn't just like fall into like the Republican Party line of like this is what, all the Republicans want, so that's what I have to do. No, dude, I respect that. Like, dude, this is a democracy. If most people want those ideals, that's what
Yeah.
should win, even if I don't
I'm
agree
also
with
a
it.
big proponent for, what you said was not exactly the completely no government. I think that government needs to have less control over our lives because I feel like things that they get involved in that they don't have. I believe in the philosophy of having skin in the game, and I think a lot of government agencies get into a circumstance where they don't have skin in the game, so they don't have incentive to actually be successful or do the right thing. And you can see this in a lot of publicly funded things that don't have good control. It's the old concept of it's easy for me to spend my husband's money than it is to spend my own money. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, I believe in a strong central government. Like I believe that like the government is supposed to represent our interests and do what we want exactly. And it doesn't happen because there's a lot of like rich and corporate
Mm-hmm.
influence. Like I
It's
talked
definitely
this
breaking
with my
democracy.
stepmom who's very like Trumpy, very, very Trump.
So you Trumplican
And
or
and
Republican?
like Trumplican. And I'm like, listen, okay, like you hate these people on welfare. But like, is someone getting like 20,000 a year on welfare really worse than like Amazon not paying any corporate taxes over the past 10 years? Like is that really worse?
Yeah.
Like think about like
Yeah.
how much we're getting fucked over by like these rich people and you're still blaming like these poor people getting
Yeah.
like food
It's
stamps and
it's old
20,000 a year
school
on
like yelling
welfare.
at people below you because you worked hard to get where you were. It's like you're not being a human.
And no, she's not like above them though. Like that's the thing. She's very poor and working
Uh-huh.
class like my
Well, if you're
family.
poor and working
Like
class and
like
you're working, dude, I'll insert worst case scenario: McDonald's, Uber driver, restaurant, and you're making like 25 to 30, and you look down and you see a guy who's again playing devil's advocate, but you see somebody who's making 20
yeah.
who doesn't have to work, like all these people that made pretty good money off the unemployment, the COVID pandemic unemployment. You would get your blood would boil, and I understand that, but I also side with you. Like, hey, there's people that don't have options to like maybe get a job, and if they can't because of whatever, insert the pandemic, they can't get a job, ubi or unemployment until we can sort this shit out. Now there is definitely need
I
to be a
mean,
line drawn for abuse, and I think there is going to be use cases of abuse, but dude, I'm all for it. Dude, like not paying taxes versus some dude who's living.
they're just
Yeah.
like yeah, they're just redirecting their anger at the wrong
Yeah, it's
place.
less
Like
care and it's
if
more just like grumpy old. I get it. Yeah, because I work for a living.
yeah,
They
and
should
like if you
too.
yeah, it's just frustrating. It's like I don't know, like even like there is some abuse in welfare, sure, like, but even if it's like 50% of people receiving welfare are abusing the system, what if what about the other 50%? Should they just like go fuck off? Like, how are you really gonna like figure that out? And like, is that like 50% that is abusing it? Is that worse than us getting fucked over by the people that have the means to pay the taxes? Or like even worse, get a subsidy? Like, do you know how much like public money Walmart has gotten to open up a location and like kill all the mom and pop businesses in a town?
Yeah.
Like, fuck
Yeah,
Walmart.
man.
Like, I feel entitled to
Yeah,
steal from
capitalism
Walmart.
definitely needs some bars. When you know, I'm definitely a big believer in like I think capitalism creates cogs in the machines, and I'm one of them. You know, so like I suppress some of the red ideals, so I can't say that I'm like a true Republican. Like I'm for a lot of blue ideology, but I also understand like free market and small government are two big concepts of the Red Party, and I love both of them. So it's hard for me to
I mean, that's
be either
not,
or. I can't side with any one. So I just vote
I
libertarian, or I
think,
call myself a purple politician, and then I get yelled at by whoever's conversation I'm stuck in where I disagree with them, and they just,
I, I think what you're like missing though is that there is not a true like communist in the Democratic
I never
Party.
said that.
There's not one. I know, but like, so that means like socialists are it doesn't really have to do with the free market. Socialism is just like helping out with a better social safety net.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of those countries that they want to model after, like Bernie Sanders wants us to be more like Sweden and
Which are
Denmark
great,
and
which are really
Norway,
great. They're doing really good for their people.
and their free market
Mm-hmm.
economies. So like you could still have a free market but have a better social safety
I
net.
can.
And so
Yeah.
like you don't have to vote Republican to keep a free
No.
market. Like Democrats are mostly Republicans from the
Yeah.
90s. So like the Overton window is shifted so far to the right that like most mainstream Democrats are basically what Republicans were in the 80s and
I'm
90s.
born in a gun family too, so sometimes I get a little scared when I see people that are pretty tight on gun regulations, and I'm not like the big "they're taking our guns" kind of guy, but like Biden's policy that he had openly written prior to being inaugurated was like pretty. It's getting pretty close to not okay. Like the actual fiscal like the fiscal like struggle that it's going to cause on people like me who just have range guns, and like some of the situations where it creates like overnight felons when he enacts his gun policy. Like there's some touchy subjects that Democrats get in on, and I'm not trying to be completely like anti-gun solution, but like I've just
Yeah.
never, I haven't seen a politician, at least on blue side, that has been educated or at least somewhat appropriately addressing gun control. And I think
Bernie's pro gun.
I saw how Bernie was communicating about it on Rogan. Ironically, I know I probably shouldn't quote political beliefs off Rogan, but it was a sit down conversation with two men, and Bernie actually didn't have a perfect direction for gun control. He said, "I don't know that making them harder to get is the right thing to do. I don't know that taking them is the right thing to do. All I'm trying to get at, Joe, is that I think something needs to be done." And I could 100% side with that. When he said that, I was like,
Yeah.
that's reasonable, dude. And I've had plenty of
Yeah,
conversations.
Bernie's pro
I've had
2A.
plenty of conversations with Democrats, and I know there are some that are like hunters and stuff, and people that I know that'll be like, "Oh, we like guns. Democrats like guns," and I'm like, "Did you see Biden's like plan? Like, some Democratic policies for guns is like weird, and maybe I shouldn't be
But it's
so
like,
attached to the Second Amendment, and I don't even want to say that puts me in the red side, but like, dude, when somebody tries to take something away that like is ignoring the problem, I get really defensive. Like we're ignoring some of the
yeah.
broader issues of why guns are even being abused. And
So when I went like, if I think of like ideal scenario, my ideal scenario is that nobody has guns. Honestly, like I think that the world would be a significantly safer place if like cops didn't have guns. Like if guns just like didn't
yeah,
exist, right? But like obviously that's not possible. That's like not the situation reality that we
mm-hmm.
live in. So like turning away from that, like if that's the case, I think that then, since so many people already have guns, I truly wish that owning a gun wasn't a right. I wish that guns were a privilege that you had to earn, just like driving a car.
Hmm.
Like, I think that you should have to show, competency with safety laws regarding
Yeah.
guns. I think that you should, have to have like a background check, and like, that's the case for
Competency
how you
is
should have to get
definitely
a
a
gun.
really good approach to it, and I completely support that. I know a right is cool, and I was gonna say at first that it is technically a privilege because you have to be under good merits in order to receive a firearm. You know, you have to be um,
Depends on where
well,
you
no,
are.
still, no, not at all. Still, you have to, no felonies, no. Even they can refuse you for some misdemeanors, I believe. Like I think there's some misdemeanors that come under the assault belt that like you're immediately not allowed to. There are cases. I don't know if there's states where for some reason that can slip by, but I know that they try their best. Now, the only reason I stopped by saying privilege is actually a better way of putting it when you addressed it is that yes, competency is definitely like this is something that can kill somebody like a car, and it is almost like we just expect the people that introduce you to firearms when you're growing up to be the best teachers and the best regard for proper like I'm so dude literally I called you out before you were holding a BB gun and you had your finger on the trigger and I was like
Yeah.
like this is like the reason there's a problem and so now you understand like you have to have proper gun discipline. It's always loaded. Never put your finger on it. Know how to separate ammo and firearms. There's things that like not everybody's granted proper education when they grow up, and not even granted proper firearm education. So competency is definitely like I 100%. And some
Yeah.
beyond right circumstances like concealed carry, which I possess, but my city literally all I have to do is fill out a form and pay $20 and they mail it in 5 days. Whereas like South Carolina and a bunch of like these more maybe liberal countries or sorry states, basically countries but states, they actually make you go to the range and like have a moderate grouping so they can see like, oh, you know how to load and chamber the firearm and you can actually shoot something like if you need to defend yourself, not just point that bad boy sideways and hit half the block because there was a guy chasing you.
Yeah.
And so 100% dude, I agree. I'm glad you're rational about it.
Yeah. I I like it's something that I go back and forth on, because like clearly there's a problem in the country, right? Like there's so many mass shootings. Like it's very easy for me to be reactionary when it's like, man, like it's so easy for someone to just go and fucking mow down like 20 people because they feel like it. Like it's so easy to be reactionary and be like, man, nobody should have these things. Like we need to get them all off the fucking street. Like it, it's such a complex issue. But at the end of the day, like the reality we live in is that like it's going to be a right forever. Like it's probably not going to be taken
Mm-hmm.
away. It takes a fucking constitutional amendment to overturn that, and that requires like I think 75% of
Yeah,
states
and it'll never happen
ratifying
if
it.
we're
So
at
like,
50-50
yeah,
red and
yeah,
blue.
dude.
It's
So
it'll
like,
never happen.
so 2A is never
Yeah.
going to go away, and so in that case, I think you have to try to make it as like responsible as possible. Like I think that like safety lesson requirements that are state licensed is the way to go. But then I do think that there should be less friction, because I think that like poor people should have access to
Yeah.
guns. Like if that's the
Yeah,
case, like if
impoverished
cops are going to go
communities where
around
you need to
bullying
defend
people,
yourself
like
is a reasonable explanation. So you definitely have to find the fine line.
I'm not even like defending from other people. Like we have to fucking defend ourselves from cops at this point, dude.
Oh,
Like cops are so oppressive. Like,
yeah.
dude, like I mean, they're so oppressive. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, what else are you gonna do? Like, and at this point, we almost have a civil war
Yeah.
brewing. Like, they fucking raided the Capitol. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what's to say they're not gonna eventually just like storm a city and try to like fucking kill
We're gonna
liberals?
have
Like,
what was the Chaz or whatever in Seattle.
yeah, dude, they were like fully okay with like capturing AOC and killing her, like at the
Yeah.
Capitol. Like, it's just like it's
There's a
terrifying. And
concept.
so if that's the reality, we're gonna live in, like we
Do
have to
something.
keep guns accessible so that like people can defend themselves. So I think people on the left really should embrace guns at this point,
But I'm
but
also
still
allowing
be safe
I'm
about it.
also for and allowing the fact that like Republicans should open up at least some opportunities for, like you said, the capability of maintaining and using a firearm. Yeah, I think like back like 70 years ago, like they used to actually have like firearm training in some high schools. Like they would shoot even if it was low caliber, like just because firearms are such an integral part of. It might even been 100 years ago, but I've seen photos of like kids laying in hallways shooting rifles like down the hallways or whatever. And I don't know, because back then it was more. I mean, at least in conservative areas, it's still common, but like it isn't like unless you have a family that hunts, you don't like learn how to use a firearm for hunting purposes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, totally agree.
That
And
goes back to the same
it's a
thing
very complex
with
issue.
the.
It's a very complex issue. It sucks, and I truly wish that it was a privilege instead
Yeah,
of a right. But I know it's never going to
that's fair.
change.
So,
Yeah,
it's almost been 4 hours, so I'm going to wrap this
I
up.
know. This is probably the we could probably
Dude,
go on
probably could,
forever.
and it's okay to like not feel like you have to force opinions and conversations out. So like, it was definitely super cool. So I want to give you the floor to announce if people like you on the internet, where would they come get more of you?
Yeah, so it's been great being on the show. Looking forward to doing it again eventually. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Upstate X Mosquito. Shout out to Polar Bear Club. I ripped it from one of their
Had to
songs.
give cred.
Listen to Have Heart. It'll change your life.
I, di- I didn't know
That's
you were
about
on
it.
Insta too. Are you pretty 50-50 on the
Yeah.
socials?
Yeah, I know. I'm not on Facebook because Facebook is ruining democracy.
Oh yeah,
But I'm
hive
still on
mind.
Twitter and Instagram.
But
I only post maybe like 6 times a year on Instagram
but it's
though.
there in case you want it.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes I just scroll through and see what my friends are up to.
Where that's what I use Facebook for. That's why I keep it.
I had to get off, dude. I kept arguing too much.
I did that from time to time in some of the political jargon that we don't have to really cover. Like when I see people going back to the gun thing, like with the Kyle Rittenhouse situation, which is shitty, and I'm for and against what happened, literally almost at an equal level. And I don't know, maybe we can just shoot the shit on that one another time. But I'll find people that are blatantly too far one direction, and I've had conversations like both sides. Like I've called out blues and I've called out reds,
Yeah,
and so I was like, after that one, after like all the emotional friction from it, I was like, yeah, dude, I just gotta like let people put a shoe in their mouth and somebody else can do what I just tried to do, because you can't move people on an internet basis. I'm
nobody
no,
changes.
nothing.
No,
And even
nobody
if they are
changes. It
wrong,
wasn't worth
even
my
if they are
time.
wrong, they will never admit it, and they'll just get more hostile. And you can avoid that in person. Like you can definitely like you can read a
Yeah,
room, and someone can like just be like at the cafe listening to you talk about that, and be like, yeah, like dude, you're totally fucking wrong. Or if you would even start to act the
yeah.
way you were online, somebody would come over and like make sure the situation was okay. Like there's no restricting those the words and the hate speech when you call someone's wrong ideals out. Not even that. That sounds toxic when I say that,
It's
but but if I say
yeah,
like dude, you're clearly undermining the fact that he killed three people, regardless of if it was self-defense. And then I'll literally the person that says he shouldn't have been there, and I'm like, oh well, I mean, most of what he did was legal, but I think he should have stayed home. Like I've called out both sides when people go too far. But
it's just not even worth the
yeah,
emotional
it's
labor
not.
because like nobody's gonna like listen to
hmm
you. I'm not gonna listen to what the fuck they're saying,
Yeah.
honestly, because most people are uninformed, including myself. I'm wrong about
Of
many
course, you
things,
can't
but
keep up
like
with it all.
it's yeah, it's just not worth the
Yeah.
emotional labor. I would rather sit here and consume funny TV shows,
Stay
play
on Reddit.
Magic, fucking do a D&D podcast with my friends. Yeah, go
Reddit
on
only gets
Reddit, read some
upvoted by
weird
the power
shit.
of democracy. That is why I recommend it to everybody.
Yeah, I do stay on Reddit. Shout out our Buffalo Bills. It's It's the best family on
Yes.
the internet.
So my Facebook, I digress my Facebook experiences to keep in touch with people I went to high school with and family. So occasionally I'll pop in and I'll lurk on like people's profiles to see what they're getting into. But yeah, all my scroll time has been pretty much dedicated to Reddit and the occasional Twitter because I can choose what I look at.
I've really gotten to the habit of when I think about people that I went to high school with, I'll try to just call
That's
them.
cool.
That's what I've started doing is just because like yeah I miss these people but I don't want to be on Facebook, so I'm just gonna like
What
personally
was your
connect with
graduating
them.
class size?
I think it's done 250 or
So
so.
rough guess, how many close relationships do you have with high schoolers?
Oh, not a lot, maybe like
That's
10 or
cool.
so.
Okay, I could probably keep up with that. My graduating class was 726 or something like that. So I always like to hear like people's high school maintenance stories just because like there's the people that were in a
Yeah.
small town of 60 people in a graduating class and they knew all of them, and I'm like, damn, dude, I can't even name more than 60. I know faces though. So yeah, but
Yeah, it's too funny.
it was awesome, Anthony. Hopefully you had just as much fun as I did.
Yeah, this was great, and I definitely have me back on any time. I would love to sit here and shoot the shit all day, and hopefully people like to hear our
Yep. Would
opinions.
you like? How did you feel about the questions?
The questions are great, and let me think about different things that I didn't think where I was going to
Yep,
get
yep.
asked.
They're all open ended too. A couple of them I had to actually change because they were a little too open ended. So the first one used to be what was in your coffee this morning, and it was always about coffee when the question literally was not about coffee. It was what was your mental breakfast. But they keep the door open so you can just talk about random shit. And of course, the fourth one's the PSA. I think if you can afford it, dude, $20 a week in Bitcoin, I'm telling you, in the next 5 to 10 years, it'll be worth just as much as your 401k in terms of intrinsic value. Like it has so much potential to help people like me and you, like unionize money against people that abuse it. That's what Bitcoin is.
Or revolution. Those are
Yes.
the two options: Bitcoin
Well,
or
me and you
revolution.
can tweet about the revolution and rally for it. But if it doesn't happen, I'm really liking my crypto portfolio right now because it's a really good insurance policy. Anyways, I'll let
All
you
right,
go, man.
buddy.
Have a good night.
You too. Take care.